is going on everywhere.
Hello again, everyone, and welcome to the Frontline with Joe and Joe. Joe Pasillo, as always, joined by Joe Rossinello. And once more, dear brothers and sisters, let us go into the breach on the Crusade Channel, always on air and always online at crusadechannel.com, the last live radio station standing. Remember, the chat room's open, and it's the only social media out there worth actually socializing in at crusadechannel.com/chat. Joe and I are all over social media, wherever you find us. We would ask you to do us a little favor. Just like, subscribe, share, hit the little bell. Anything you could do to help us out. If you'd like to support us financially, we are on Patreon, patreon.com/the Frontline with Joe and Joe. Veritas Catholic Radio Network up in Connecticut. We do a Sunday afternoon interview show. We would encourage you to download the Veritas Catholic Network mobile app so that you can have access not only to Joe and Joe show, but also to all of the station's content. It is an EWTN affiliate. And finally, on the Crusade Channel, remember, you could listen for free. You could test it out. Kick the tires, Joe Rossinello, as they like to say. You could kick the tires, take it for a test drive, won't cost you nothing. All right? But then we're convinced at the end of the day, you're going to want to subscribe to the Crusade Channel. So we would encourage you to do so. So now having said all that, we got it. Joe and I try to avoid certain people, okay? People. We try to avoid certain people because, quite frankly, they just make us sick. Like, don't even want to pray for them. Joe and I pray for them. But they make us sick to the point where we don't want to talk about that. However, we have to talk about Nancy Pelosi because I don't know if she's just evil. I don't know if she loves to lie. I don't know if she's just flat out stupid. And I don't want to waste my time that God gave me, all right, trying to analyze Nancy Pelosi. But what we will do on the front line with Joe and Joe, we're going to talk about her, let's just call them idiotic statements, and we're going to break that down alongside the response of Archbishop Salvatore Cordileone, okay? That's going to be our primary focus or our first conversation that we're going to have tonight because, quite frankly, these liberal Catholics in America, they're just mocking us now. Now it's like Father Stephen, the protest priest, Father Stephen Imperato, he likes to say they're mocking us. Biden's mocking us. Nancy Pelosi is mocking us, okay? Dick Durbin, all right? All of them. They're just flat out mocking us. So you know what? We're not going to mock them back. We're not going to be like they are, okay? But we are going to shed the light of truth on their nonsense. That's what we do at the front line with Joe and Joe. Joe Manchin, he's the most powerful man in the United States government, at least as far as domestic policy is concerned, and halting the radical agenda of the left, does not want the Hyde Amendment to be repealed. Wants it to uphold the Hyde Amendment. Why? Because he's in West Virginia. And if he doesn't do that, he's not going to be a senator next time around. We're going to talk about that. The word patriot is now hate speech. I don't know if all you good, Joe, did you hear that?
No, I did.
Yeah, patriot.
Also, having a flag too on your car is something to watch out for.
Right, because it shows that, you know, if you put Old Glory on your car, then of course, according to Joe Biden and Nancy Pelosi and all the people that make us sick, you are a hater and a white supremacist, and the FBI needs to investigate you. So we know that. I am so happy, and we're going to talk about not only the story, but some of the reactions. I am so happy when the left gets it stuck to them. And you know who I really, Joe Rossinello, dislike? I hate to say this as a Catholic man. I don't hate her, but I dislike her. Megan Rapinoe, is that her name? Rapinoe.
She's got purple hair.
Purple hair. Didn't Prince write a song about? Oh, no, that was Purple Rain, okay? Purple hair, okay? They got shellacked by Sweden, okay? And we're going to talk about that. Sports Illustrated, I
haven't heard that term in a while.
Shellacked is a good word. Shellac is a good word.
My father used to say that.
My father used to do that to me all the time, all right? My father used to shellac me. Well, the women's soccer team got shellacked by Sweden 3-0, so we're going to talk about that. Sports Illustrated used to be for guys. Now I guess it's for guys who want to see guys dressed up as women on the cover of Sports Illustrated. So that we got to talk about. I don't understand Joe Rossinello, and we're going to talk about a bunch of things, but also one of the stories we're going to get to, hopefully, is this idea that you could actually say in America, when it's all about race, Joe. Everything's about race, right? It's all about race. Yet there's people out there that say that, and we're going to read you some of the quotes, and you're really going to need to gird your stomach when you hear them, that they fantasize about shooting white people and walking away guiltless for having done so, and some other atrocious things. Joe Rossinello, I am not the Lord's most perfect creature, far from it. And those words towards another race would never come out of my mouth. Why are we allowing them to get away with this vile and disgusting speech? And you know what? Joe and I are here to say to all these racists out there, because that's what you are, okay? When you speak like that, we're not taking it. And we need to start holding them accountable, and the organizations that allow them to do so while in their employ. So, and we got a couple of the stories that hope we get to. That's the crux of it, and with all that, I am handing it over to Joe Rossinello.
So let's talk from first story. As Joe said, we got a little Pelosi action coming at you. This is from the National Catholic Register. For those who don't know, speaking at a weekly press conference at the U.S. Capitol, Pelosi said that she supported a repeal of the Hyde Amendment because it's an issue of health for many women in America, especially those of lower income situations and in different states. And these are her words, not mine. And it is something that has been a priority for many of us for a long time. She added that as a devout Catholic, and this is what got Archbishop Cordileone, I think, in the mix. She said, as a devout Catholic and a mother of 5 in 6 years, I feel that God blessed my husband and me with a beautiful family, 5 children in 6 years, almost to the day. She stated that she would not presume to make decisions for other women regarding their families and abortion. Okay. Now, as a devout Catholic, you cannot support abortion. Whether you're a senator, whether you're in Congress, whether you're a president, whether you're a janitor, the two don't mix. And frankly, the Archbishop did the right thing. He did the right thing. This was his address, basically. He said, to use a smokescreen of abortion as an issue of health and fairness to poor women is the epitome of hypocrisy. What about the health of the baby being killed? What about giving poor women a real choice so they are supported in choosing life? This would give them fairness and equality to women of means who can afford to bring a child into the world. It is people of faith who run pro-life crisis pregnancy clinics. They are the ones who provide poor women life-giving alternatives to having their babies as opposed to terminating them in the womb. And he's right, because here's the deal. He's the teaching head of that diocese. She belongs to that diocese. And frankly, he's in charge of her soul. What do I mean by that? He has to basically shepherd her soul. That's his job. And, you know, God's grace falls on the good and the bad and the like. He's got to love her as much as he loves the person who goes to church every single day.
He's got to love her more.
Exactly.
He's got to love her more.
But what he also has to do is, because she's a public figure, when she makes a statement like that, I am a devout Catholic, it's not about power and it's not about pointing fingers. It's about confusion. You see, not everybody who goes to church reads, the Pope's, encyclical
from 500 years ago.
Right, and is reading the catechism, and it's confusing. So his role is to bring clarity to the situation because she's making such a statement. And he did it. And that's what he has to do. I mean, listen, the bishops in America, let's be honest, we're in a time when they could be a lot stronger. I'll just be charitable. But
that was very charitable, Joe Rossinello.
But I will say this, that's his job, and he did it. If you ask me, it should be taken a few steps further. Like what happened in Illinois with Dick Durbin and
Bishop Paprocki.
He made a statement, and he said to his priests, you cannot give Durbin the Eucharist. Why? Because of Canon 915, you're creating a scandal, and it's a public scandal. And it's different, obviously, and we've done this on other shows, talked about time and time again. If I do something, I'm not a public figure, but Dick Durbin is. And when you make a statement like, I am a devout Catholic, and then you say you're for abortion, it's a confusing statement. The bishop has to step in.
And he did. Okay, I've heard some criticism of him along the lines of, similar to what you said, not in an uncharitable way. It was, okay, good, Archbishop, thank you for that. But further steps need to be taken for Nancy Pelosi. for her soul, not for mine. I have to answer for my sins, but for her soul, she needs to be awoke in a positive way. She needs to wake up. Okay. Now, here's my problem with her statement. Aside from the fact that she's just again, did it strike you, Joe Resinello? Did it strike you the elitism that was dripping from her statement? My husband and I were blessed so we could have 5 kids in 6 years. But what about those women who don't make as much money as me? Should they not have the choice to kill their babies? Say that my grandmother Josephine Pasillo had 8 kids. She was dirt poor when her and my grandfather came to Newark. Joe's grandparents, the same thing. His grandma, we said on the show before, had 12 kids that survived. That's 17 kids. Nancy Pelosi would say that your grandmother shouldn't have had that many kids, and my grandmother shouldn't have had that many kids, because my grandfather, when they first started having kids in the late 20s and 1930s, was draining the swamp in the Meadowlands under a New Deal program, making $1 a day. That's what my father told me. That's what my grandfather did. Okay. Yet every one of his 8 kids were offered the opportunity to go to school. 5 of them did go to college. 3 of them did not by choice. But they made it just fine, Miss Pelosi. What do you mean you have the money and the means to bring children into this world, and poor people we need to federally fund abortion so that poor people can kill their babies because they just can't make it in life? My point, Joe Resinello, please comment on this. Is there an elitist attitude that just drips from that statement in your mind?
Well, it's Americanism. I mean, even people who aren't poor, even people who are middle class. I'm about to have my 5th child. My wife is due in October. And I mean, I would classify myself as upper middle class. I'm just being honest. I'm not poor, but I'm not rich. But at the same time, people look at me and my wife. You're having 5 kids. Are you out of your mind? And that's Americanism. Mm-hmm. 2 and done. What do they call it? Like you have 2 kids. That's it. I just ran into someone at the diner on Saturday. A family I've known my entire life, and I was with 2 of my sons, and she was asking about my wife and my kids. I was like, yeah, we're expecting our 5th. They're just like, you got to stop. You got to get a TV, Joe. You got to clip that. Like this is like
that is
Americanism.
I
mean, it's Americanism because everybody, everyone has to have their own room. Everyone has to like this is what's in the psyche, whether you're rich, poor, or middle class.
Juxtapose that for a minute, Joe Resinello, at the Crusade Channel, always on air and always online at crusadechannel.com. Juxtapose that with the prior generation, the generation of our parents, okay? Now, what I learned growing up, I wish I had taken the lesson earlier, but nonetheless, I did eventually take the lesson and straightened out my life. But what I learned was your life's fulfillment comes, yes, through God, okay? But even on another level, okay, God is always first, don't get me wrong, okay? Your fulfillment comes from your family. Your success is determined by the fruit that you bear. It's like, oh, what? You make $1 million a year, you decide to have 2 kids, you could travel the world, your kids go to the best schools, and what? You think somehow you're fulfilled more than the person who, like Joe says, works in the lumber department at Lowe's, has 6 kids, is able to provide for them. Him and his wife are providing for them. They could send them to school, and they do their best. But their fulfillment comes through their family. That's the difference in generations. Is that one finds fulfillment in the world and the things I could do and the places I could go and the things I can own. And the other generation says, I'm going to be fulfilled in the family that I raise. The children that I bring into the world and form into good adults, that's where I'm going to find my fulfillment. And I think that's where the differential is, Joe Resinello.
Well, I'll be honest. I mean, I'll just speak for myself because that's all I could really speak for. It's very hard. I'm not going to say it isn't.
But the sacrifice was essential. In other words, and again, my father was a flawed man along the lines of what you're saying. I'm not one of those people that puts my father on a pedestal. He had his flaws. But I can honestly say my father sacrificed. My father said something that along the lines of what you're saying. You want to go to Seton Hall Prep, or you want me to own a Cadillac? Oh, no, I want to go to Seton Hall Prep. Good, that's why I drive a 68 Chevy. You know, no, but sacrifice is what I was trying to get at.
But I think that's what it comes down to. We, and this is a very Catholic idea of marriage, A good priest who I'm friends with on Facebook posted this week, and to be honest with you, I found it enlightening because it's true. When you're a Catholic, well, it doesn't even matter. When you're married, you're called to death. That was what the post said. And I'm not talking about your marriage is going to kill you. Your ego is called to die. Yourself, the self, is called to die. Marriage is a vocation which leads you to heaven. Now, that doesn't make it easy. That's why it's a sacrament and you get grace through it. The point I'm trying to bring up is marriages in America now are secular. I want to have my kingdom on earth, and therefore I want a vacation where I want a vacation. I want to have the type of house I want to have. I want to have the type of cars I want to have. And when you have numerous children, unless you're very blessed, and there are people who are, God bless you then. I'm not. So what my point is, you're going to live in a mediocre house. You're going to drive mediocre cars. You're going to not vacation where you want to. You're not going to have a lot of things that you could have had if you didn't have the kids. And I think that is a big thing that goes through people's heads. People want to have their kingdom on earth. It doesn't work that way. You know, that's how you get to heaven. I'm going to be truthful with you. You die to self. Christ, whether you're a Protestant or a Catholic, I'm just giving you a little theology here. Death to self is the path to heaven. That's the path to heaven. And when you have children and you have a wife, numerous children, you die to yourself. That doesn't make it easy. And I fail a lot. I'm not going to say I don't. But my point is, it's hard. It's hard.
Do you remember that movie with Tom Hanks with the League of Their Own? I think the one with the all-women's baseball team. And he had a great line. It's an okay movie, but he had a really great line. Gina Davis said something to him about baseball. And he said, of course baseball is hard. That's what makes it great. That's a true statement. Anything that's worth doing is not going to be easy. Okay? The struggle, the difficulty, the reliance on God, the internal strength that you have to have, the patience, the idea of sacrifice, okay? That's what makes it great. That's why, what do you want, let's say, if you're an 85-year-old man, okay? In other words, with your big bank account, do you want the 2 kids, all right, who probably don't want anything to do with you because you just spent your time making money? They could be successful in the world and all that kind of stuff. Or do you want to be the 85-year-old guy who has 7 kids and 25 grandkids that are all there with grandpa and grandma on the weekends, okay? And that's where you find your fulfillment. Now, again, people have different worldviews. I don't want, I'd love to drive a nice car. I really would. I'd love to own a really nice house. I really would. But when given the choice between that and making sure about the well-being of my kids, okay, when the time comes, most of you know that my wife and I are in the process of still trying to adopt. We've had some problems with that, but we're going to get kids. God's going to give us kids, okay? My fulfillment will come through those kids the same way, Joe Rossinello, your fulfillment comes through yours. Because if I get to 85, God willing, I want grandkids around. And I don't care if I have a 68 Chevy in my driveway. And that's the truth. That's what Christ does for you, by the way. That's what conversion means. Why? Because I'm perfect? No, I'm the furthest thing from it. But I at least understand that much. Fulfillment comes from God, and then what you do in this world, primarily the sacrifices you make by having kids. And don't let the American culture tell you, well, I'm supposed to have 2.2 kids, and I'm supposed to have 2.8 cars, and I have to have a $532,000 house, and then I'm successful. Give me a break.
No, but
give me a break,
But
Joe.
also, in fairness, just to recap the story, Cordileone, thumbs up to you. I think you did the right thing. Pelosi, you have a skewed idea of the faith. I'll be honest with you. Whether you're rich or poor, God gives you the grace to do what you're called to do. And frankly, you can't do it without God.
That's right.
You
and
can't.
what she said, by the way, just it's got to be a lie. She's an Italian. She's a daughter of immigrants. She knows the Italian American experience. She knows the wave of immigration in the 19th century and then in the early part of the 20th century from southern Italy, primarily in Sicily, to the United States. These people had nothing, but they had big families. And you know what? A lot of those kids went on to be successful in America, if you want to measure it by, let's say, professional success or financial success, okay? And many of them just raise good people.
And
okay?
you don't have to be professionally successful.
Right,
to
you
be
could
successful.
just, listen, you can work for Consolidated Freightways, they're out of business now, but you could be a Teamster and make $50 an hour with full benefits and do very, very well.
No, but that's what I'm saying. Like, that's where, like, again, you have to ask yourself, where is your kingdom?
Let's take a break, Joe. I want you to talk about that more. We're going to also talk about the Hyde Amendment. You're at the front line with Joe and Joe. Joe Pasillo, Joe Resinello, way in the breach on the Crusade Channel, always on air and always online at crusadechannel.com, the last live radio station standing. Stick around. We'll be right back. Welcome back, everyone, to the front line with Joe and Joe. Joe Pasillo, Joe Resinello. And yeah, unfortunately, we are talking about Nancy Pelosi and abortion. But the good thing is also Archbishop Salvador Cordileone's response to her. And you are listening to us at the Crusade Channel, always on air and always online at crusadechannel.com, the last live radio station standing. Joe Resinello, you make the best point. There is no such thing as heaven on earth. None. It doesn't exist.
No, you never find it.
No matter, listen, the communists have tried to convince people for decades now, that you could have a utopia on earth. You could have heaven on earth. Okay? It ain't going to happen. But the best you could do is strive for that. And the best way to do that is build a big kingdom. And you know how to do that, Joe Resinello? Have kids. It's like that movie, My Big Fat Greek Wedding. Have babies, lots of babies. The Greek father is yelling at his daughter. Have babies, get married. All right? Yeah, he might be an old school Greek, okay? But that's the key to life. God, family, work. What the hell else you want? All right? That'll get you to heaven.
Well, again, just speaking from someone who's in it, it's hard. I'm not going to say, and God gives you the grace to do it. It's also what marriage is. It doesn't matter whether you're rich or poor. If you're Catholic, you're open to life. Now listen, there are people who are open to life that only have 2 kids. It's just the way it works out.
Right.
It's trusting God. God provides, and frankly, this is a disturbing statement. It's a sad reality that America has embraced this culture, and I think it permeates other aspects of our society in so many other ways that, frankly, affect the culture in a very, very, very bad way.
Yeah.
So, it has to be a 360 shift. And frankly, to go against that grain, and I credit Pelosi for having 5 kids. Good for you. You had 5 kids in 6 years. I tip my hat to you. Good for you. But to be open to life, again, is a vehicle that leads to selflessness.
Do you know I heard about Nancy Pelosi and her family? There are many members of her family that give her a lot of grief over her anti-Catholic positions and how she's a duplicitous, where she talks out of both sides of her mouth, where she can actually have the nerve to say, again, I don't know that she's stupid. I mean, sometimes I don't know how to gauge that. But do you realize that you're saying you're a devout Catholic and you're supporting abortion? And she gets a lot of grief from her family, but evidently her family can't get through to her either. She is one of those people that, again, just looking at it objectively, has a heart of stone that only the Holy Spirit can pierce, and we have to pray for that. We have to pray that somehow, some way, the Holy Spirit overcomes her and she realizes the error of her ways, because she is contributing. And again, it's one thing. Let's get back to the politics, Joe, if you don't mind for a second. All right, because we were going to talk about the Hyde Amendment. But here's the thing. Even the left, for the longest time, understood that if they want moderate votes, people who, let's say, don't have a skin in the game on abortion, even though we all should, okay, so they at least some way cater to those people by saying, okay, we're not going to federally fund abortion. She's not even for that. She's sticking it right in your face and saying, we don't care if you're pro-life. You're paying for baby killing too. That's also a very annoying thing about her and the rest of the left, is when you say, I don't want to pay for it. And they say, well, we're going to force you to pay for it.
Well, that's the party. I mean, there's no room for moderation in the Democratic Party on abortion. I mean, we've said this on the show. I mean, we're one of 7 countries in the whole world that are for third trimester abortion. I mean, and we're in the company of like China, North Korea. Look it up. I'm not making that up. Where's the UN on that? third trimester abortion.
Yeah, but
that?
You're right. You're right about the UN. Where are they? But we know where they are. They are a population control outfit.
Well,
That's
absolutely.
what they are. Their biggest problem, their biggest racist problem at the UN is that there's too many black and brown babies being born in the world. Leaving aside all the white babies in America, okay? Too many black and brown babies being born in Africa and places like that. So I know what you're saying, Joe. Where's the UN? We're obviously not expecting them to do anything. But what we can do is did you want to get into Joe Manchin?
Yeah,
all right?
Absolutely.
The most powerful man in government right now, as far as it goes. And thank the good Lord that he's putting up some kind of a roadblock. I mean, they're fighting tooth and nail. They know their time is short, by the way. We've mentioned it on the show, on the Crusade Channel, always on air and always online at crusadechannel.com. We've mentioned that they know their time is short. They know these laws in the individual states that are going to strengthen voter integrity are passing. And the people that are passing that legislation, they're not backing down to the shrill voices of Stacey Abrams and the rest of them are calling it Jim Crow and it's racist. They're saying, no. Well, okay, you're going to say that anyway. We're strengthening our voter integrity laws. We're going to have integrity in our elections. Joe, they know they're toast. And they are trying by hook or by crook to do anything to convince Manchin that he's got to go along with some of this stuff. And on a number of issues, but on the one we're talking about here, Joe will get into it. The Hyde Amendment is staying. If Joe Manchin has anything to say about it.
Let's just give a little background so people know what we're talking about. This comes from Life News. Joe Manchin is opposing Democrats' attempt to overturn the Hyde Amendment to make Americans fund abortion. So it's Manchin and Roger Wicker. He's a Republican from Mississippi. They sent a joint letter to the Senate Appropriations Committee urging them to preserve the Hyde Amendment. This is a long-standing federal policy that prevents forced taxpayer funding of abortion on demand. This is what the letter says, and I want to just highlight one aspect of this letter.
Please.
It said, recent public polls show that 60% of Americans oppose or strongly oppose using taxpayer dollars to support abortion. Both Democrats and Republican presidents have signed the Hyde Amendment into law, and it has passed through both Democrat and Republican-controlled Congresses, and it was upheld by the Supreme Court in 1980. Repealing this position would eliminate over 40 years of bipartisan precedent. Now, why did it pass bipartisan precedent? Forget about your position on abortion. Let's talk pure wins and losses. Because people don't want to pay for it. It says 60% of America oppose it. So it's politically advantageous to go along with that, whether you're a Republican or a Democrat. Forget about the ideology for a minute. This is why Barack Obama and this is why Joe Biden are bad politicians. The politician, like Clinton, like Bush, like Manchin, get it. Why? Because 60% of America oppose it. I don't know what Joe Manchin's heart is on the abortion issue, but he gets it.
You remember that guy you told us about? The guy you knew worked down on Wall Street and his attitude was abort away?
Yeah.
But I ain't paying for it.
So a guy said that to me once.
So a guy said that to Joe, abort away. Now, so obviously the guy doesn't care he does one bit about abortion. But here's the kicker, and this is why it's a political loser. But I ain't paying. I'm not paying for it.
And he's indifferent.
Right, but what people are not indifferent to is I ain't paying for it. You want to go out and get knocked up. You want to buy contraception that fails, and then you want to go have an abortion. A guy like that says, I got no problem with it, but you pay for it. And again, on that one level, if we can't do anything to change the laws, let's say in a state like New Jersey or whatever the case might be, in this godforsaken state, all right, at the very least, I'm not paying for it. I'm not complicit in your murder of your child. I'm not, whether directly or indirectly through my tax dollars. And I'm going to fight against you tooth and nail. You go out and get pregnant, you want an abortion, go get the jerk that knocked you up to pay for it, or you go bust tables and you go get the money yourself and you go pay for it.
Well, here's the deal.
Now, I don't want them to do that. Don't get me wrong. I don't want them to have an abortion. But why on the political level, as you mentioned, Joe, that it's a loser? Because even pro-choice people say, I ain't paying for it.
Right, and here's the thing. This is where I sometimes am flabbergasted, because I live in a blue state, New Jersey. I pay taxes. Why is my voice doesn't count? Your voice seems to count. You pay taxes too, but so do I. Why do I have to support this crap?
Right.
Isn't it like if we were agnostic, wouldn't that be equitable on something like this? Let's just be objective. Let's be agnostic on it. Same thing with some of this nonsense being taught in public schools. Let's be agnostic because we all pay taxes here, right? I pay taxes. Why should you impose your will on me? You're supposed to be the tolerant people, right? I don't want this. I don't want a 10-year-old to know about anal sex. I'm sorry. I don't want to hear it.
And that's one of those situations where what you couldn't object to. Let's say you, Joe Rossinello, were sending your child to a public school and you have a parent who disagrees with you on everything, sending their kid to the same school. What's the problem with saying all of those things that we are diametrically opposed on do not get taught in the schools? Because you're not gonna be opposed to that person when it comes to teaching your son math.
But that's all
You're
they
not
should
going to
be
be
doing.
you're not going to be opposed to them teaching your son how to read, write, and do math, okay? Because that's why you go to school. But you leave the sex and the cultural agenda out of it. Why is it that they object to that so much? If you don't want to have Catholic teaching in a public school, okay, fine, okay? But we're not going to have your secular values taught in the public school either. Leave it out and teach the kids the subjects. Why is that so objectionable? Because we're saying we're not allowing you to indoctrinate our children along with your worldview. We're not going to indoctrinate your children in ours, but you're not going to indoctrinate our children in yours. Moreover, it's a legitimate position to take because you pay taxes and I pay taxes. So the only logical way around it is no cultural agenda in the public schools.
Exactly.
It's that simple.
It should be that way. But also getting back to this discussion regarding the Hyde Amendment and taxpayer dollars to fund abortion, the Susan B. Anthony list spoke out on it, and they get it too, by
Right.
the way. I'm just going to read you one thing they said. They said a number of things, but this is something that, frankly, this regime doesn't get. They said this: the House Democrats' bill is too extreme to pass the Senate, and they push a radical agenda at their own political peril. You see, they're overplaying their hand. And people, regular people, again, not ideologues. Obama, we've said this before, was an ideologue. The agenda of this regime, they're ideologues.
Right.
They're ideologues.
Do you think that Mark Kelly in Arizona, if he forces taxpayer funding of abortion, you think he's going to remain a senator? Or do you think he's just going to waltz right back into that Senate seat? Because he's up for re-election in 2022, because that was a special election, okay? Once they straighten out the election situation, the voting situation in Georgia, you think, first of all, Ossoff and the Warlock, neither one of them are getting reelected. But even if they had a shot, do you think that in supporting this, if everything is fair and square on the election front in Georgia, you think they're going to have a job as senators? Absolutely not. And the same in these other places. Tester in Montana, okay? You think that they're going to have jobs? Kristen Sinema, okay, in Arizona again? No, because in a purplish to red state, okay, that's where you're going to find those 60% of the people, Joe Rossinello, that say, I'm not paying for it. I'm not. And if Mark Kelly or Kristen Sinema or Tester or Warlock or Ossoff in Georgia, if you vote for this, you're going to be out of a job. I'm not paying. So politically, you're right, Joe Rossinello. I don't see them getting all gung-ho in Georgia and Arizona and Montana and other places about supporting this, because like you said, for 40 years, the Hyde Amendment was one of the more popular pieces of legislation.
Bipartisan.
It was bipartisan. Somebody commented that, well, Clinton would support it now. I don't know that that's true. Clinton, being the slick politician that he is and interested in his own power and likability, would not probably, even now, if he was president, would not support
Truthfully,
this. I don't think so
and again,
anyway.
I'm talking purely wins and losses. Again, the Democrats have to come a little bit to the middle. Like, I'm still not voting for him because on this position, you disqualify yourself. There are disqualifiers. Sadly, you get labeled when you voted for Trump. They call you all types of names. They can't accept the fact that, as a Catholic, I can't vote for someone who is for abortion. I can't. It goes against my faith. I can't do it. Just like I can't vote and wouldn't vote for someone who is for slavery. It's a disqualifier.
Right.
Well, this is a disqualifier. They can't accept that. They'll call me names. But it is what it is. But my point is, this is a loser. And they have to come to reality. Now, who ruined one of the few, Obama being one? It was also Sanders. Hillary Clinton, who I do not like and would never have voted for her ever, had it 100% dialed in. If it wasn't for Sanders, Hillary Clinton had it dialed in perfectly. Sanders ruined her. Ruined Hillary Clinton. I've said this on the show before. I'm talking winning. I'm not talking about I'm not talking about
politics now.
I'm talking pure winning. Regular people who live on your block, who get up at 5 o'clock in the morning and go to work, people who take care of their kids, wherever they go to church or they don't go to church. I'm talking about people, functioning Americans. And I'm telling you this, to be honest with you, if you're a Democrat, you should be telling your representatives what I'm telling you right now. Regular people don't identify with you.
Well,
I'm
Joe,
telling you, and I live in a blue state because I talk to people on my street who are Democrats. They don't identify with this.
No, and the reason why, Joe Rossinello, that you're not hearing it is because now don't think that doesn't mean it's not out there. Don't think. Remember what I said. Remember what we brought up. Now I'm pretty sure that this stat is correct. Okay, I'm 99% sure. 27 toss-up races in the last election on the congressional level, all 27 went Republican. In those districts, okay, now now if the Republicans just hold firm, they'll keep those 27 districts. But in those districts that are purplish, okay, you're not going to hear CNN or MSNBC talk about that. But the people in those districts are letting their representatives know about this. They are letting their senators know about this. They are saying what Joe's saying. Look, now a lot of times this is what people will say. I got no problem with abortion. I ain't paying for it. And I'm going to hold it against you if you make me pay for it. It's such a loser. And my point to you, Joe, is we're not hearing about it simply because the press isn't going to report on it. But bet your bottom dollar that the people, the representatives and the senators in those states and districts, okay, they are, if they get behind this, they are going to hear about it. And they're going to end up on the not so pleasant side of that reaction from the people themselves, in my opinion, for the reason you said. It's a loser. Straight up, it's a loser.
And that's why, like I said, they're not politicians. You see, a politician knows when to dial it back. Clinton did.
Joe, I want to throw this in there because it was one point that was along the lines of what you were making. But here's another thing, too. This is not like a passing Obamacare that once it's passed, it's going to be such a hard thing to overturn. They passed this. The first Republican Senate and House is going to overturn it. Remember, Congress controls the purse strings, okay? They're going to overturn it. They're going to repeal it immediately, okay? So I don't know why. Again, there are hills to die on, Joe Rossinello. Why they would die on this one, number one, because it's a loser, and number two, it's not this big federal program you're creating. It's simply a law that says abortion is going to be funded. Well, you simply pass a law repealing that law. It's that simple. So I don't even know why they would attach themselves to this because it'll be so short-lived anyway. I mean, that's unless
it's just part of their whole mantra, dude.
Why, to show just how evil they could be?
I mean, like the party, again, I say this to Democrats out there, it's off the rails. It's off the rails. Ooh. Like, even like the standard, listen, again, I grew up in New Jersey. I have friends, their families, they've been Democrat forever. I know the deal. I know the talking points. And I've said this, and sadly, it doesn't get through people's heads. This is not the Democratic Party of your grandfather. It simply isn't. Even Bill Clinton would not do well if he had his positions now.
If he ran on his 1992 platform backed by the Democratic Leadership Council or the Democratic Leadership Conference, Southern Democrats like Sam Nunn and people like that back in the late 80s, 90s, when they got drubbed by Reagan again, and drubbed by Papa Bush, okay, where they had to regroup and basically take the party back, at least on the surface. From the left, they had the Democratic Leadership Council. Clinton ran on that, okay? He would not have gotten the nomination in this Democrat Party.
But even
and
JFK,
nobody here is a fan of Bill Clinton.
No way.
Okay, but let's be clear. Running on that same platform that he did in 1992,
no way.
He would not have gotten the nomination in 2016 and especially in 2020.
Let's talk Carter. Let's talk JFK. None of them. This is not that party. And again, it's look at the policies.
Do you even call it? I think you give them too much credit by calling them policies. They're just outrageous.
No, but I'm just saying.
No, I know what you're saying.
Forth. I mean, I know what you mean. I totally get it. I get it. But like purely look at who they're nominating to positions. Look at their backgrounds, like Javier Becerra,
Rachel Levine.
Look at who they're nominating, and again, look at their positions. You see, this is this political schizophrenia that people have. It's actually a disease. People can't get over their own identity as I am a Democrat, I am a Republican, and they just shut their eyes to some of this stuff.
You know, one of the best things, Joe Rossinello, that's happened to me in my life, that and I'm being honest here at the Crusade Channel, always on air and always online at crusadechannel.com, the last live radio station standing. Remember, go on the website, go to crusadechannel.com, listen for free. Kick the tires, look under the hood, listen to the Mike Church Show, listen to Rick Barrett, listen to Kennedy Hall, Joe and Joe, Dave Simpson, and we are convinced that you're absolutely going to love it. It's like, you know, you look at the things that they push, and you have to say to yourself, like, are they evil? Like, you know what I'm trying to say? Like, a lot of people, like in the chat room, they're evil. It's like they've absolutely embraced evil positions. But like at some point you want to say to yourself, are you people just completely blind? Whether politically, morally, and ethically, in any way. Are you stupid, blind? You want 10-year-old girls to learn that they can be boys?
But they'll
and
say,
all this
I
stuff?
honestly believe people say, I'm not for that. But then you'll say, who are you going to vote for? Joe Biden. You see, that's what I'm saying.
Right.
Like, it's like a schizophrenia. Like, they'll be like, well, you do realize there's inflation. They're printing money, and everything is up. I was telling Joe, my food bill weekly is up almost $50.
Right.
I have a family. You know, my mom lives here, so I'm shopping for 4 kids and 3 adults.
Right.
It's $50 a week. So people are feeling it. Yet, who are you going to vote for? Joe Biden.
Joe Biden. Well, I was going to say, and we're going to go to a break in maybe about a minute or so. One of the best developments in my reversion, if you want to call it, I never really left the Catholic Church, but I certainly wasn't a practicing Catholic, okay? I consider myself to be a serious Catholic and take what the church says seriously, as we all should, okay? One of the best things that happened, and this is a response to what my brother Joe Rossinello just said about party identification. In my reversion to the church and digging more deeply into the faith, there was a moment where I said, honestly to myself, because I used to defend Republicans no matter what. No matter what. I was one of those guys that, George Bush, really great president, But then when my eyes were open, one of the best things that ever happened to me in my life was that I stopped identifying as a Republican. Do I lean Republican? Are there good Republicans? Certainly, okay? But at the end of the day, I ain't a Republican. I don't want to be a Republican. I want to be able to tell the Republicans, no, some of your policies suck. When you back the Chamber of Commerce that wants to bring in cheap labor, that sucks, and we need to say that it sucks. That it is not just the Democrat positions that suck. Your ideas suck too. And we need to tell them that. My point in telling the story, Joe, it's liberating not to be pigeonholed into a party, to think freely. As a Catholic in America, to say, no, I disagree with you on everything, but I disagree with you guys on a lot of things too. It is liberating. I don't want to be called a Republican. I don't.
No,
I don't want to
get it,
identify
but I
with
think
them.
that's why, because when you attack, I guess, their identity, it's almost like a personal attack. I'm not attacking you. I'm just telling you, these ideas, if you break them down, they stink.
Let's go to a break. We're at
And
the
they
front.
bear no fruit.
And that's right. They bear no fruit. You're at the front line with Joe and Joe. Joe Pasillo, Joe Resinello, and man, are we in the breach. On the Crusade Channel, always on air and always online at crusadechannel.com, the last live radio station standing. Remember to get in the chat room at crusadechannel.com/chat and follow Joe and I across social media, Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, Gab, Rumble, the whole 9 yards, wherever you see us. Like us, share us, do all that fun stuff. And if you want to drop in a couple bucks, patreon.com /the Frontline with Joe and Joe. Stick around. We got a lot more for you on the Crusade Channel. Welcome back, everybody, to the front line with Joe and Joe. Joe Pasillo, Joe Resinello. Joe, let's get right into it. Where we headed?
Let's talk MSNBC, sadly.
Sadly, I like the way you say that, Joe. Sadly.
The TeaParty.org brought us this one. They basically were discussing something that they came out with on MSNBC. They warned viewers. They said the word patriot is hate speech. Be on the lookout for online groups that use the word. So let me just give you a little excerpt from this. We're living in a strange time in American history. It's now become cool and hip for individuals to hate on the flag and label it as a symbol of racism. The national anthem has been deemed to be offensive, and apparently the word patriot is now a code word that is used by hate groups. According to a new report put out by Gateway pundit Dan Patterson, an MSNBC tech reporter, has warned the network's viewers to be on the lookout for hate speech, like the word patriot being used online. According to him, a very dangerous group of individuals use this term. How sad.
Yeah.
I mean,
Can you imagine Joe Resinello saying that to a World War II veteran?
how sad. I mean, just net. Listen, is America perfect? No. No. But I will tell you this, just purely from the perspective of how we live. Listen, it's flawed. We kill children. The politics are absurd, what's going on. And frankly, if you ask me, we're in decline. This is undisputable. And I'm not the only person that has stated that. People a lot smarter than me, academics, you could have written books about it. But listen, I'm going to tell you this, and I have traveled extensively. You'll be hard-pressed to find a country whereby your standard of living is better. Particularly if you're not wealthy, particularly if you're not brilliant, if you're sort of like the average person, you will be, even as it is now, you will be hard-pressed. That includes Canada, that includes Australia, that includes any country in Europe.
And you want to know,
pick it.
You want to know what's funny? Maybe it's not funny. Maybe it's sad. Okay, if with all the technology we have now and the efficiency we have now and the things that we could do in America, do you know how much we would explode even more? See, we can't listen to the right either when it comes to cheap labor and deunionization, even though unions are no bargain either. But nonetheless, protecting workers' rights, making fair trade deals that are fair to us. Do you understand if you had a little practical application of Catholic social teaching in America? Workers, higher wages, strong families, women raising their children so the husband can go out and earn enough money to raise the family, which is not the situation now. Both parents really do have to work, okay? But can you imagine a little practical application of the social teaching of the Catholic Church? We could be an even greater economic force in the world, okay? But instead, we try to gain our growth through usury, debt. Debt is usury, slaverish usury, okay? Cheap labor, automating people out of a job. That's the current American view of economic prosperity. How much greater we could be if we actually focused on having all people participate in our economic enterprises, okay, in a meaningful way where they could build their lives financially and prosper. If we actually did that and strengthened families, just how much stronger we would actually be. Infinitely stronger. But we don't do it. And why conservatives are just as much to blame for that. Conservatives, because they're pro-contraception. They're not into what we spoke about earlier in the first segment. They're not into having big families, 5, 6, 7 kids. Catholics are, okay? All right, many Catholics are, all right? A lot of Hispanics that come across the border, they have big families.
Orthodox Jews.
Orthodox Jews, okay? They prosper. We can all prosper. We have to stop worrying only about the bottom line and worrying about the real bottom line, is having a system where everybody can participate and prosper. That's one of the problems in America. That's that Americanism, Joe, that you like to talk about.
But ultimately, getting back to the term patriot, the left is trying to silence their opposition. This is the bottom line. And they're using a false narrative to paint conservatives as evil people who are looking to hurt anyone who doesn't agree with them. Like the term patriot, like someone who puts their hand on their heart when the national anthem is being played. I mean, again, America is flawed. Let's be honest. But you know something? Everyone is flawed. I'll say it again. You will be hard-pressed to find a more solid life as a middle-class person anywhere in the world than here. I'm telling you this. I have seen it. I've been to New Zealand. I've been around. I've been all over Europe. I've been to South America.
You want to see dirt poor? Go to Rome.
You'll be hard pressed. And this is the thing that, you know, a lot of what's going on, it's so sad because of all of these people who are basically disrespecting this country benefited from it. Many of them are wealthy. Like because of the opportunities presented to them in this country that they would not have had in other countries. And that's the sad reality of what we're watching right now.
What you like to make the point, Joe, all the time on our show, The Frontline with Joe and Joe on the Crusade Channel, always on air and always online. You always like to make the point about sacrifice, an unwillingness to sacrifice. And really, you know, not all people of this generation, but there is so much unwillingness to sacrifice. But does it strike you alongside the lack of this sacrificial spirit, Joe Resinello? You also have a spirit of what you just spoke about, ingratitude. Look at all these kids, a lot of whom are in Black Lives Matter and Antifa. They're not from poor families, okay? In other words, Patrice Cullors is now filthy rich, okay? The founder of Black Lives Matter. Only in America could you do this, okay? And the ingratitude towards a nation that gives all of us the opportunity to make our lives according to our choices that we make, some good, some bad. But this ingratitude that some rich white kid from the suburbs whose old man makes $1.5 million a year, okay, somehow has a problem with America. In other words, where's your gratitude for the place? I mean, like I said, you could go to the outskirts of Rome, young man or young lady, and you want to see poor. Joe's been to Calcutta a number of times. If you want to see poor, go to Calcutta. Go to Haiti. Okay? You ain't poor. Even the poor in America aren't poor.
Please.
I said that for years. How are you poor and you're 250 pounds walking down the street? In other words, that ain't poor. Poor is a little African baby who's about 15 pounds, okay? In other words, is not growing properly with flies around their head. Let's try that kind of poverty out. And then see how grateful you'd be to evil America. Yeah. It really is horrible.
No, like I said, it's an insult to all of the people that came before us that sacrificed so that we would have the life that we have. And frankly, we take it for granted and we're driving it into the basement. Mm-hmm. And it's sad. It's very sad. I see some of this stuff. I can't even believe it. I would love to see, like, if you, like, you know, to be a fly on the wall, if you were in, like, say, like, a veteran's home and you saw, like, 80-year-old guys who grew up in a different era, maybe guys that fought in Korea,
Vietnam.
maybe even World War II. You know, they would be definitely up in age, you know, closer to 90. How they view this, it's so sad.
Right.
Like with all our warts, with all our flaws, I'll be honest with you, I can't even believe what I see with some of this stuff. Listen, this is not the way to go about it. Whatever your political stripe is, this is not the way to go about it. And again, if you don't like it here that much, I got news for you. Give it a try somewhere else.
Go to Cuba.
I'll be honest with you. I think your eyes would be open, because I'll tell you what, you pull some of this nonsense in some of these other countries, the police will arrest you and beat you within an inch of your life. You have a right to bleed, sweat, and die in jail, and you don't get a phone call.
No.
I'm going to be honest with you.
No constitution protecting you in some of these dirt poor countries. And yet America allows you to walk around and burn cities down like they did last summer. And somehow America's bad? Most of you are doing very, very well. Your families are doing very, very well. In other words, in Antifa and Black Lives Matter. And somehow you're going to say that America has treated you so poor. Well, I'm worried about the other guy. Don't worry about the other guy. All right? There's a lot of problems in America. Why don't you start thinking realistically? Attach yourself to reality when it comes to the things you want to see implemented and start working for those things rather than the destruction of America. See, Joe and I want to change America. We're tired of baby killing. We're tired of attacks on the family. We're tired of the attacks on children and trying to indoctrinate them. We're tired of attacks on workers and trying to just drive their wages into dust. Why can't you be productive and try to do something to change America rather than tear down the whole thing? It ain't completely broken. You don't have to tear down the whole thing. But serious reform is needed, and there is a difference. There is a difference. So you're at the front line with Joe and Joe Pasillo and Joe Resinello on the Crusade channel. And just remember, don't use the word patriot, because the Gestapo will come and knock at your door and take you away. And it doesn't matter if you fought in Korea, Vietnam, Desert Shield, Desert Storm, Afghanistan. Doesn't matter where you fought. If you use the word patriot, they're gonna want to send you to jail because you're a hater, according to MSNBC. Keep that in mind. So, Joe, where are we headed?
Let's talk woke sports. It's been a topic.
Woke sports.
It's been a topic, reoccurring topic on the show. So we got to do it again because each week there's tons of stories about it. Frankly, it's completely off base, and we're going to explore that a little bit.
So we said in the first segment, Nancy Pelosi makes us sick. Megan Rapinoe, even sicker. Go ahead, Joe.
Well, Kyle Morris brings us this story. We're going to talk a little bit about the U.S. We've said Megan Rapinoe,
tomato. What was she of the purple hair?
Let's all call the whole thing off. But anyway, she played on the U.S. soccer team, plays on this U.S. soccer team, and they got routed by Sweden. As my friend Patrick Fahey would say, God rest his soul, they're a dirty country, Sweden.
Well, they kicked our butt in ladies soccer.
Well, anyway, this is the deal. They lost brutally 3-0 in their opener in the Tokyo Olympic Games. And there's been a lot of backlash online. Let's read a few of the statements.
Well, but explain, Joe. But why the backlash? What did they do first?
Well, they wouldn't. What's it called? They all kneeled. They took a knee.
Not all of them. I saw an image online. I think three of them stood up with their hand on their heart, and Rapinoe and a bunch of her comrades, they took a knee.
You know, it's funny. I saw that picture too, and what I thought about, because I played team sports, and I thought to myself, if I was a coach, the opposing coach, and I saw a team where 3 people are standing, the rest are kneeling, I'm going to be honest with you, I'm beating you. Because a team has to play as a team.
Right.
And that shows that you guys are not on the same page. Teams that win, many times it's not about superstars. It's about chemistry.
Right.
And again, I played team sports. I know what I'm talking about. You have to have chemistry. I could remember a basketball team. I believe it was the Houston Rockets. They had Clyde Drexler. They had Charles Barkley, and they had I forget who else, but 3 of the top 50 named the top 50 basketball players of all time were on the starting lineup. They didn't win. It's about chemistry. That's who win. Teams that win. When I saw that picture, I was just like, they're going nowhere.
And go ahead. Joe and I, we don't ordinarily do like stories where we run down some reactions, but some of these reactions were priceless, but very well said. Very, very, very well said, and needed to be said. You take a knee. I don't know. Do you represent America? Are you on the American women's soccer team? Some other version of America's women's soccer team? 3 of you are standing, the rest are kneeling. Do you think you're going to win, Megan
way.
Rapinoe?
No way. Teams like that, like I said, you already have division. You didn't even get on the field yet, and no way. You're not winning.
I want to relay a story real quick from a few years ago. I watched a documentary on Vince Lombardi and Jerry Eisenberg, who's Jewish, okay, writer, sports writer for the New Jersey Star-Ledger. He was telling a story about Vince Lombardi, and it was a very important game. It was either a championship game or it was one of the Super Bowls, where Coach Lombardi went into the locker room. Now, Coach Lombardi was a Latin Mass attending Catholic. He used to go to morning. He was a daily communicant. He used to go to morning Mass and assist the priest.
Yeah, he was an altar boy.
Right, in morning Mass.
He was the altar boy.
As a coach of the Green Bay Packers, he was an altar boy. Okay. Jerry Eisenberg told the story that Vince Lombardi, according to the players that relayed the story, gave one of the most inspiring speeches in the locker room, and the Green Bay Packers went out there and they crushed it, okay? But Jerry Eisenberg, who's Jewish, said that, you know what the speech was about? He said Christian love. He challenged his men in the context of Christian love. What are you willing to do for that man there, your teammate, okay? Will you leave it all on the field? Will you sacrifice yourself? Will you give everything you have? And he put it in the Christian context. They went out and crushed it. Look at where we've come from the 1960s. This is what we have. The opposite of that. Joe's right. If you're the opposing coach, you're looking at your teammates on the Swedish team, and you're saying, we're going to crush them. Just get out there and just kick their butt and go after Rapinoe in particular because she's useless. In other words, we're going to go out there, we're going to crush them because that's what happens. You can't win a sports game. You can't win in life, okay? In other words, if this is your attitude,
no way,
the attitude of this, and I wanted to juxtapose that with Vince Lombardi, because again, the Packers went out and crushed it, okay? Because Vince Lombardi challenged them to give everything for your teammate. If I'm one of those girls, Joe, I'm being honest with you. If I was one of those players standing up while everybody's sitting down, and I'm playing a football game, I ain't sacrificing my body for that guy. I'm not.
Well, it's just like I said, they shouldn't be there. If you don't want to represent the country, then don't be on the team. There's plenty of people that do. Don't be on the team.
And the woke media will give Megan Rapinoe a job. It's not like she's got to worry about money. She could go out and she could be a commentator for MSNBC or CNN.
Well, these were some of the responses. Matt Walsh, Daily Caller, Matt Walsh?
Yeah, Catholic.
He said, I'm so happy they lost. I'm actively rooting against the U.S. women's soccer team. I want them to be humiliated and embarrassed just as they humiliated and embarrassed our country. Commentator Laura Chen, maybe less activism and more practice next time. Again, you're not there to be an activist. This is where people have lost their mind. People in business, people in sports. Sports is an escape. It's people
want to get away from all this
right.
stuff.
This is not why people watch sports of all political stripes. Whether you're a Democrat or a Republican, I want to see the Knicks. I'm just throwing this out there. I go to a Knicks game. I don't care.
If you're wearing a Knicks jersey in a Knicks game and you're talking to the guy next to you wearing a Knicks jersey, you're going to be talking about the Knicks. You're not going to ask the guy, who did you vote for?
Right. It's not about that. And this is where they've lost. I'll be honest with you. They're supposed to be the smartest guys in the room who run these companies and run these teams. Frankly, it's just straight up and down stupid. I can't even believe that they've gone into this arena of like woke activism because it's turning people off. First of all, and we're going to get into this in the next story as well when we talk about Sports Illustrated, you don't know your clients. In business, you have to know who you are marketing to. This is a basic business idea. The demographic. Who are we marketing to? People who follow sports are not woke lefties. I got news for you. Most of them, the lion's share of them.
Most, Joe, let's face it. Most of your dyed-in-the-wool hard leftists, they don't give a damn about
That's
sports.
my point.
They don't watch the New York Jets.
That's my point. They're not watching a basketball game. They're not watching a football game. They're not going to a Yankee game. I'm telling you this. Again, the best polls are your own street, your own neighborhood, the people that you encounter. That's not your demographic, and they've lost focus. They've lost the trees in the forest, the people that are running the show. This is not, you talk about a winner and a loser. It's a loser.
We do have to wonder. We do have to wonder what their end game is. We'll talk about it on the other side of the break. But I will say this: the best line I heard in the reactions was Robert O'Neill. He's the Navy SEAL that's credited with killing Osama bin Laden. He said, "Quote: It's fine to protest, but the U.S. women's soccer team boycotting goals may have gone too far. Remember, they got shut out 3-0.
And also, someone in the chat room said Olympics should not be about politics. You're right. The Olympics are about bringing unity to the world. It's a common ground. It's like music. Like, we don't have to agree, right? Like, politically. But if you hear music, you could say it almost like it's like one of those unifying things. Everyone could be like, wow, that was like, if you hear, like, say, like, Pavarotti or something like that, someone with an amazing voice,
right,
you could say, oh my gosh, it doesn't matter your politics. Sports is kind of like that. It's a unifier. The Olympics are supposedly one of those situations where all the nations of the world, we put down our differences for a few weeks and we compete in sports with goodwill, with sportsmanship.
Let's pick that up on the other side of the break, Joe. You're listening to The Frontline with Joe and Joe. Joe Pasillo and Joe Resinello way in the breach, storming the machine gun nest tonight on the Crusade Channel. Always on air and always online at crusadechannel.com. The last live radio station standing. Get in the chat room at crusadechannel.com/chat. And please, if you want to support Joe and I financially with a couple bucks, patreon.com/The Frontline with Joe and Joe. Stick around. We got more woke sports coming your way. Welcome back, everyone, to The Frontline with Joe and Joe. Joe Pasillo and Joe Resinello in the breach on the Crusade Channel. Always on air and always online at crusadechannel.com. Joe, I've always had a theory, going back to when all this has started with sports. There is one thing. I don't like when people denigrate sports. Sports have been around for thousands of years. St. Paul was an athlete. He speaks in athletic terms a lot in his letters because he was, at least according to what I've read, he had a point in his life where he was athletic, okay? Sports have been around for thousands of years. Why? Sports teach us something as human beings. In other words, the competition, okay? The hard work, the sacrifice, the self-denial, okay? Learning how to be a gracious winner and learning how to be a good loser.
Playing on a team.
Playing on a team. Sports, and yes, sports traditionally has been associated with manhood, manliness. The left in America have been trying to destroy sports because one of the things that and we're going to talk about it with Sports Illustrated, they want to destroy manhood, manliness, okay? That's what they want. That's one of their goals. The problem is, I don't know what Roger Goodell and the commissioner of the NBA and the head of Major League Baseball and all these organizations, what do they gain by allowing the woke leftists to destroy the sports that they're in charge of, Joe Resinello?
You know,
what do they gain? Look, you always say the same thing. You know they're a business. They have to be about making money. Why would you do this? I don't know the answer. I don't know what their agenda is. It can't be doing good business because, as you said, they don't even know their own freaking audience.
My deal is just be agnostic. That's it. It's like, again, the comment which we made regarding the public school. Maybe it could be advertising dollars. I don't know. Like I'm not in the boardroom, but I am a fan. And I know people who are fans, regular people.
Right.
In New Jersey, which is a blue state, Democrats, they don't want to hear it. They don't want to hear it. And again, regardless of your advertising dollars, the ultimate client in sports is the ticket holder. If the ticket holder doesn't buy the ticket, doesn't buy the jerseys, doesn't buy, go to the concession stand at the game, you're out of business. That's why they're paid so much, because people are interested in spending their hard-earned money to go and watch someone compete at a high level.
We have Robert, who's in the chat room. We talked about this, Robert, about 4 or 5 months ago. Salve et coagula, okay? And it does apply here. The idea of dissolving, it's the, by the way, for those of you who don't know, salve et coagula means to dissolve and then to bring back together, but in a diabolical way, okay? So you dissolve, in this case, when it comes to sports, though, I don't know that they want sports to exist. If they destroyed sports completely, I think they would be happy with that. I think if they dissolved it as we know it and then reformed it in their own image, basically an effeminate football, an effeminate basketball, an effeminate baseball of some kind, and sucked the manliness out of it, I think they would be happy with that too. But you're right, Robert, you're right. The idea is always, when you're talking about diabolical leftists, the idea is always to dissolve first, and then remake it in some image that you prefer after you've dissolved it to begin with. And it does apply to sports, because it seems like, Joe Rossinello, that's kind of what they're doing.
I get it. And I think, and we'll talk about this, Donohue says, in his opinion, the rebellion, as in the client, as in the ticket holder, has just begun. I've actually seen comments, again, on social media, and my poll is the people I know and the people I rub shoulders with. They're fed up. And I'm telling you right now, I mean, ultimately, if this keeps up, I'll be truthful with you, people should just stop watching. And people have. People have. You see, that's what's going to change all of this. Ultimately, listen, people are in control of a country. The leadership, there's an old symbol. Actually, believe it or not, to get a little biblical on you, a little theological on you.
Throw it at us, Joe.
It's actually on the crest of the Jesuit order. It's a pot with 2 wolves on each side. Now, what does that mean? I don't know what it means specifically for the Jesuits, but I've heard this breakdown. If one wolf eats too aggressively from one side of the pot, which is held up by a string, tips and no one eats. So you have to allow both sides to eat. You see, what we're seeing right now is the elites are tipping the pot. And what will happen if the pot tips and the other side doesn't eat? They will devour the elites. Eventually, in a country, when the pot tilts too much against the common man overturns the elites. Now, I'm not talking about violently speaking, but what I'm talking about is the voice of the common man is what turns the wheel.
We talked about Cuba last week. In other words, they haven't allowed those people to eat, meaning to be free, in decades. And at some point, these are people who are weaponless. They don't own the guns because, like good communists, they disarmed the population like the left is trying to do in America, okay? But Joe's making a very good point. At some point, you say, death is better than this. Risking my life is better than this situation. And as Joe always says, when they overplay their hand, that's why they're trying to take guns out of our hand, by the way. Now, we're not calling, nor will we ever call for violence, except in self-defense. But why do you think they want to disarm the American people? Because they know at some point, see, we're not Cuba. And Americans, no matter what you say, are not giving up their guns. Not going to happen, okay? But the thing is, at some point, people get fed up. We covered Cuba last week. Listen, you want to get arrested in Cuba? Carry an American flag down the street. And that's what they're doing. They're saying, this sucks. Cuban life in Cuba, a Cuban's life in Cuba sucks. I'd rather be dead. Or at least I'd rather try and fight for my freedom than live like this anymore. And like Joe said, those are all just regular people. No elites amongst those people. The only elites there, like Joe said, they live in their own part of the island with armed guards. In other words, and they eat foie gras and drink Grey Goose and smoke Castro cigars.
But ultimately, a place like Cuba, or a place here for that matter, nothing is going to happen in Cuba unless the military and the police turn. And here's the thing, what happens in banana republics. Ultimately, you will get a military leader who sees an opening and knows that the people will back him, and he'll turn. You see, that's what happens. That's what happened in Argentina during the Dirty War. basically the military took control of the country for a period of time. Ultimately, that's what will happen in Cuba. The sad reality of it in places like that, then you just replace it's basically rinse and redo.
Yeah, recycle.
You know what I mean? Like
Right.
you get another despot that replaces the old despot because it's again a power grab. But I'm just using the analogy of the pot and the two wolves. I personally think the people who are in charge have lost sight of what the normal man wants. And frankly, as that direction continues to progress, you're going to see trouble. Because ultimately, again, even Democrats are not on board with these things. I'm telling you this right now, and I know them. They're not on board with a lot of these quote-unquote ideas. I think they're going in a dangerous direction. And I've said this time and time again. I don't know how long this is going to last, but it's not going to last forever. It never does.
So it's like the old saying, evil can only thrive when good men do nothing. At some point, now good men are doing a lot, okay? The founder of the Crusade Channel, Mike Church, and the whole crew down there. Joe and I think we're doing our part. We're in the fight, okay? We're acting fearlessly. Okay, and there are things to fear. Getting canceled, getting doxxed, all of it, losing your job. There's legitimate fears, especially when you have family, okay? There's a lot of people doing it. But there needs to be more of a push. And ultimately, yes, we also have to realize this is not a political fight. As we all know, most of us here are Catholic, all right? Some of our Protestant brothers and sisters. But at the end of the day, we know this is a spiritual battle. We have to bring God into the picture. We have to bring God into the picture. He leads the army, not us. And he sends Our Lady to do it, okay? Like at Lepanto. But my point is this. Evil will thrive when good men do nothing. Little by little, because as Joe always says on the Crusade Channel, always on air and always online at crusadechannel.com, they've overplayed their hand. Now, in their overplaying of their hand, there has to be a reaction. You must step up. Do you want your 5-year-old to come home and say, your 5-year-old boy, to say, Daddy, my teacher told me I could be a girl if I want to. Do you want that? Are you going to allow it if Johnny comes home and says that his teacher said he could be Janie? Or vice versa? No, of course not. So when are we all going to step? All of us have to step up. Woke sports will not be around too long if we stepped up. Burn your Pittsburgh Steelers jersey. Burn your New York Jets jersey. Don't go to the games. If you have kids, don't spend. It's going to cost you $500. Joe, 500, easy.
To go to a Jet or a
father
Giant
and two
game,
sons go to a Jet game.
it costs I think $40 or $50 to park.
Right, and then the tickets, and then the beer. If you're an old man, you're gonna have a beer. You're gonna have hot dogs. You're gonna have popcorn. You're gonna have all these things. Or you're going for $5. Why would you put that money in Christopher Johnson? I think it's Chris Johnson runs the team now. In his pocket when he's going to allow his players not to stand up for the national anthem.
That's the answer.
The answer is empty stadiums, no ratings. The Jets might actually be good this year. And if I find out, I didn't watch them last year, okay? And I barely watched them the year before. Now, they did suck. They're actually supposed to be pretty good this year. I ain't watching. If they go down this road, I ain't watching. And if the NFL in general keeps going down this road, I'll take it out on the Jets, and I'm not going to watch it, even if the Jets are not participating in that. We need to make decisions. One of the decisions we need to make is about Sports Illustrated. And Bill Donohue has something to say about that.
Yeah, Bill Donohue is the president of the Catholic League. We cover him often on this show.
And by the way, we did a great interview with him.
Check it out.
Check it out. It is... Is
It's
it
on
online?
Veritas Catholic Network.
Veritas Catholic Network. Download the mobile app and go Frontline with Joe and Joe. Great interview with Bill Donohue on the Equality Act. On the Equality Act. Go ahead, Joe.
But Donohue, basically, the title of the article was Sports Illustrated Loses Its Way. So this is how he breaks it down. He basically says, many men used to read Sports Illustrated in their barbershops, and some subscribed to it. Always informative and loaded with color photos. It was the quintessential sports magazine for men, no longer. How many men really want to see a man dressed up in a woman's bathing suit featured on its cover? The venerable sports publication has 3 cover swimsuit issues this year, one of which is a picture of Lena Bloom, a so-called trans model who is a biological man. And I have seen this on social media, scrolling. I mean, first of all, you would never know. To be honest with you, if they didn't say it, that's number one. Number two, though, he's 100%, and it's to be honest with you, it's actually a very graphic picture.
Oh, yeah.
He's bending over,
it's pornographic.
It is. I mean, that's number two.
Now, but real quick though, you would never know. All right, because of Photoshop and everything else, and they believe me, you never know that Britney Spears is a little porker in real life when you see her on stage, but when she's not performing, you know what I mean. So
but I'm
there's
just
a lot of
being
production
I'm
going.
Just being honest.
But you would never know. But to follow up, you'd never know it by looking. But Sports Illustrated ain't hiding it.
But my point is, the only reason why I say these things, first of all, like I said, it's very graphic. It's a graphic photo. You don't know your audience because Donohue nails it right on the head. Do you think men, a large swath of them, I don't know the demographic breakdown of sales for Sports Illustrated. Women will read it too because there's stories about women's sports in the magazine. I mean, I've read it in my life. To be honest with you, the large swath of men do not want to see a guy dressed up as a girl on the cover of a magazine. I'm just telling you, because I'll be honest with you, I'm not interested in it. The only reason why I saw it, to be truthful with you, is I was scrolling in my social media.
Right.
It was in Twitter, the picture of it. And I saw it, and then I was just like, holy crap. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Just like the woman who is Miss Nevada. It's a guy. Is Miss Nevada. So my point is, men are not interested in seeing that. I'm just telling you the truth. And this is where, again, I don't get the ideas that are going around. Who's in charge of marketing for this magazine? Because you're turning your clients off.
Well, Gillette, we mentioned this on the show before. I used Gillette for years. They make a great product. I don't use them anymore because they decided that the demographic, men, that brought them to the dance, that gave them all their profits, okay, publicly traded company, rich company, that they were going to denigrate manhood, that they were going to get woke. Now, I'm one of a bunch of guys that stopped using Gillette, okay? Same thing with Sports Illustrated. Again, I don't know what the end... I wish I was smart enough to tell all you good people out there. I don't know what their end game is. They are making business decisions that are costing them money, and yet they continue to do it in the name of being woke. And I don't understand. I really don't understand why they would do this. The only thing I would tell you is this. It's our fault because even if they're hurting, then evidently they're not hurting enough. And we, not they, we have the power to make them hurt and hurt badly in their pocket. Okay? We can hurt them. Don't Sports Illustrated. That's so yesterday. If you're a guy, get rid of Sports Illustrated. You don't need Sports Illustrated. You don't have to subscribe to them, all right? Especially in light of this. Don't use Gillette. Don't watch the Jets or the Pittsburgh Steelers or anybody in the NFL. Don't watch LeBron James. Give them what they want. Give them what they want. Let them wreck these sports, okay? Let them then let them wreck. Then we'll do without sports, professional sports in America.
Well, what could happen, to be honest with you, is you could get parallel leagues that don't go along with it. Because here's the thing. I mean, any person that has played sports, those who do become professional in any sport, you're playing at a completely different level than a person that plays even at a college level. I mean, there's a reason why those men and women make money, because they do something that no one can do. Like whenever I played baseball, as a kid. But like sometimes you'd be in a bar and people be like, "Oh, I could hit that guy." No, you couldn't. No way. Not even close. Like people who are at that level, it's at a totally different level. And this is the thing. Maybe what you could wind up seeing is there's so many people that fall short and can't make it to, say, the NFL or the NBA or, say, Major League Baseball. Maybe another league will start up that doesn't buy into this. if it continues. Because people are always looking for openings for businesses.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And if someone sees an opening, you dive right in.
And that goes for social media. That's why there's Gab out there. That's why there's Twitch. That's why there's Rumble. In other words, they're not catering to this stuff. Those who have money see an opportunity. And though, let's face it, those who have money know other people who have money or know people who have access to money. And they could go get it and say, we could capitalize on their mistake. We could create it. Look, the player who busts his butt in high school and college to play professional football, he wants a paycheck. He's gonna go where the money is. If the money dries up in the NFL, okay, and it goes to another league, like we tried, I think in our lifetimes, we had the World Football League. At one point that failed. The USFL, that failed. But it doesn't mean that in given all this that's going on, the NFL and other professional sports organizations are vulnerable. A new sports magazine could pop up.
That's my point.
All right. A new sports channel could pop up because ESPN is completely political and cultural. They're not even a sports network anymore. Okay. They're completely political and cultural. When you put Bruce Jenner up on there as the Woman of the Year, okay, then on stage and give him an award, you have a problem. Okay. But openings can take place. But then when companies out there risk their money to provide a product that'll be useful to you because you don't want to use the other product because you object to their wokeness, then go out and make the switch. Give them your business. You'll be better off for it, and we'll all be better off for it,
Absolutely.
to be honest with you.
And I'll be honest with you. Eventually, this is just a very, very, very bad period.
Ooh.
I mean, I can't even believe what I see. I can't even believe it. It's and listen,
if somebody told you this 30 years ago,
my
you would
gosh,
not believe it.
You would never.
You would have said, get out of here.
That's my point. Yeah. Like even 10 years ago, it's unbelievable. And what the people who I fault are the fakos that go along and are like, oh, but that's not so bad. Oh, but that's their choice. Or oh. You know something? 10 years ago, that same person would have been saying the same thing. Mm-hmm. That's the thing I crack up about. Like the fakos that are pretending that this is fine. Some of this, and I mean some of those fakos, frankly, are in corporate settings. They're such phony balonies. It's just, I laugh when like I see, like periodically it could be a work, situation where someone will basically, give the politically correct line, like, oh, but that's, I think, real liberating that Sports Illustrated allow a transvestite or a trans man, whatever. I don't even know what they call them. I don't even know
what to do here.
Like on the magazine, and you're almost like, you sit there, frankly, I wouldn't comment on that, like in a work environment, but I hear it and I say to myself, you are so full of crap. You are so full of crap that it's obscene and it's absurd.
Let's talk real quick before the break. We got a couple minutes. Let's Bill Donohue's at the Catholic League, and the Catholic League, that's what they do. They point out anti-Catholic bigotry. He also goes on, now no Catholic really, according to this, from what I read, if I had a subscription to Sports Illustrated, aside from the tranny on the cover, for this reason alone, I would get rid of Sports Illustrated. He said last year, now you could go read the article at the Catholic League, but we're going to highlight it for you here, a couple of salient points. Last year, Sports Illustrated went for the jugular when it published a lengthy tirade against the New Orleans Saints after noting that it was a, quote, Catholic-named team, close quote, which was obviously disturbing to them. It attacked the team's owner, Gail Benson, for her, quote, close ties to the Catholic Church. And then he goes on to basically say Americans are increasingly fed up with these elites in the sports and all their shenanigans. And if anybody knows who has their finger on the pulse of what is going on in America in different groups, it is sociologist Bill Donohue. But just for all you people out there at the Crusade Channel, always on air and always online at crusadechannel.com, none of us, if for another reason, that reason, we shouldn't be subscribing to Sports Illustrated. There are so many organizations that are anti-Catholic. Let's face it, Netflix, HBO. We should be doing business with none of these people just from a purely Catholic point of view. Their treatment of Roman Catholics and Roman Catholicism in general. That is, we should just drop the hammer on them, Joe Resinello.
Absolutely. How much time do we have left?
We got about a minute.
We got another, we'll just give you a little, segue into the next segment, which we'll probably have after the break.
Yeah, this one's really going to get your anger up.
But this is another Donohue article on the Catholic League. I'll be honest, if you are a Roman Catholic, it's quite a good resource, the Catholic League. You can get an email blast every time they put a press release out. He really has his finger on the pulse with regard to some of the obscenities that are going on in the culture. But this article is basically, it's kind of humorous. He says, hating whitey is in vogue.
Let's wet the audience's whistle with that, and we're going to come back and jump into hating whitey is in vogue. I want to give all the promos. You're at the front line with Joe and Joe Pasillo and Joe Resinello on the Crusade Channel. Always on air, always online at crusadechannel.com, the last live radio station standing. Please kick the tires at the Crusade Channel. Check under the hood. Go on there. Hit listen free. We want you to become a subscriber because we know that you're going to want to become a subscriber. Also, Joe and I have a Sunday afternoon, 5 o'clock Eastern Time interview show on the Veritas Catholic Network, 1350 on your AM dial if you're up in Connecticut, Westchester, and Northern Long Island. You could also download the Veritas Catholic Network mobile app so you could have access to all of the station's content. They are an EWTN affiliate. If you want to help Joe and I on one level on social media, wherever you find us, like us, subscribe, share, hit the little bell, do all that fun stuff, whatever you can to help us there. And if you want to drop in a couple bucks, we are on patreon.com/The Frontline with Joe and Joe. Hating Whitey coming up next.
Hating whitey. That's absurd.
Welcome back to the front line with Joe and Joe Pasillo and Joe Resinello, and let's get into it. Hating whitey is in vogue.
So, like I was saying, Bill Donohue wrote this
Robert
article.
in the chat room said, Whitey Ford? No, not Whitey Ford.
So Donohue breaks it down. This is what he says. I hate white people. You can't get more declarative than that. The author, Damon Young, wrote that when he was a contributing opinion editor at the New York Times. Young is not your ordinary racist, Donohue says. He's a specialist. He says he brushes his teeth with black toothpaste and delights in using white toilet paper. Young says he likes to say the Lord's Prayer with his family. This is so sad.
This is blasphemous.
But prefers not to end with amen, but with and then kill whitey. Listen, I'll be honest with you. The thing that I can't... There are prejudiced people in this world. There are white people who are prejudiced, but there are black people that are prejudiced. And I'll be honest with you, I can't even believe that you could publicly say that. You see, do you imagine if again, I'm a realist. I know people who are racist. I'll be truthful with you. I grew up with people who are racist. To be honest with you, I mean, I'm married to a black woman. Mm-hmm. I mean, I could tell there are times, and this is in a liberal state, that, you walk into a certain room with, my family, people give you looks. I mean, I get it. I'm not, my eyes aren't shut.
We're not naive.
I get it. But my point is, to say something like that, I can't believe you can get away with it. I would never imagine someone saying that about a black person. Frankly, that's horrible. I mean, horrible, and should not be tolerated, but it should equally not be tolerated to say something like that about a person who is a Caucasian. It is horrible. And frankly, like I said, the narrative that the press is putting out there, again, everything's racist. And I'm going to tell you my fear of what's going to happen politically. I actually think they are going to lose, the Democrats, in 2022 and 2024. I've been wrong before. I could be wrong again. But what I'm afraid of is the propaganda machine, which is the mainstream media, which is the enemy of the people. They're going to spin this and say that the election was rigged because of the voting apparatus, which is racist.
Right.
And they're going to convince a fairly large swath of people that anyone who voted for a Republican who supported election laws that aren't for what? Ballot harvesting? What's that? Where one person collects votes for other people? what kind of country is that? Who's for that? That's not being racist. I'm not a racist because I'm against that. Oh, I'm for showing an ID. That makes me a racist? But the media propaganda machine, the enemy of the American people,
which they are,
they're going to pump that through everyone's head, and they are going to cause racial tensions like we have never seen in America. That's my fear, Joe.
No. I agree with you 1,000%. I don't know how we're not. It's one of those things where, and there's a couple quotes here that you're going to really have to gird yourself to be able to stomach. But here's one thing: Joe and I are not in favor of people losing their jobs. We're not. I don't want people to lose their jobs. Okay. I got into an argument with an African American member of my extended family when a guy said an off-color joke in his workplace. And he said to me, that man needs to lose his job. And I disagreed with him. I said, no, because people say all sorts of offensive things. And I don't think, and this man I was talking to is a Christian. I said, and it's unchristian not to be forgiving. It's unchristian, okay? So no, I don't want people to lose their jobs. But here's the thing. When you say things like, and then kill Whitey, and you're a writer, contributing editor for the New York Times, no, that in that case, you have to lose your job. If I went to work and I said for people to hear, and again, he's a contributing writer for the New York Times, so people are going to hear, they're going to read what he's saying. So if I say something for people to hear in my workplace and I say, let's kill black people, okay? No, I don't have a job, not for 1 second longer. Once somebody hears me say that, why is this man still employed at the New York Times? Why isn't anyone holding the New York Times accountable? That's how he ends the Lord's Prayer. By saying, and then kill white people. Let's move further. Okay, let's move further a little bit. Joe, this is sick.
No, I read it. It's absurd. It's so sad.
Dr. Shaniqua Walker-Barnes teaches theology. Don't know what kind of theology this woman's teaching. Okay? At Mercer University in Macon, Georgia, she recently showcased her theological training in a chapter she wrote in a new book. Here's the first paragraph. Quote, "Dear God, please help me to hate white people, or at least to want to hate them. At least I want to stop caring about them, individually and collectively. I want to stop caring about their misguided, racist souls, to stop believing that they could be better, that they could stop being racist." Close quote. Why is she employed at a public university? Why? You make that statement? I wouldn't allow it in a second. If somebody was a race spewing white supremacist, if somebody was a Nazi who said Jews are vermin, that person has to be out of a job. They're no longer employed. But yet this woman is considered a theology professor. And I don't get it. I don't get how people don't turn around and say, you have one chance to retract that statement, Dr. Shaniqua Walker-Barnes. You have one chance. If you don't retract that statement in full, you're fired. That's it. Why, Joe? Why? Why are we allowing this? Well, why do we allow? You wouldn't allow it in any other venue.
It's absurd. This is the craziest time I've ever seen in this country. I mean, I didn't live through the 60s, but it's just absurd. I can't even believe what I read and what I see. 10 years ago, you wouldn't have believed it. And here's the thing. Again, there are racists and there is racism in America. Let's be real. However, 10 years ago, Joe, this was not even talked about. Right. They're making it sound like to be honest with you, it's like pre-Martin Luther King. I can't even
Joe, it's like the person in the chat room mentioned about Salve et Coagula. The devil has to divide. The devil right now in the modern era is operating through those who are on, yes, the political left. Okay, that's where he's having a field day. All right. And their goal is to divide. How do you divide? You have to convince one group that they're oppressed, even though objectively speaking, they're not oppressed. They might have been, like Joe said, pre-Martin Luther King, the pre-civil rights movement. They were unjustly discriminated against. They no longer are unjustly discriminated against. Okay. But if you're the devil, you have to divide, dissolve. That's what you have to do. That's what these communists, these Marxists, these diabolical people, this is what they're doing. Because like you said, Joe, I mean, I've known my whole life what racism is all about. I learned about it in school, and I had to make a decision in my life that obviously, as all people of goodwill, to say, no, I don't agree with any of that stuff. I'm not what they call anti-racist because I don't support their Marxist ideas, okay? But yes, I'm against racism. Every Roman Catholic has to be against racism. God loves all people and created all people who are equal in dignity, regardless of where you come from or what the color of your skin is. That's the bottom line. I don't need lectures from the left and people like this Dr. Shaniqua Walker Barnes or Damon Young to give me, or Joy Reid, all right, or Hannah Nicole Jones, or any of these race hucksters. I don't need them giving me lessons on how not to hate people. I already know not to hate people. By the way, my wife is Joe's wife's sister, so I'm married to a black woman too. I don't see my wife as black. I see my wife as a Roman Catholic American woman.
I don't like that's another crazy thing. Like I don't even notice my wife's color.
Right.
That's a God's honest
truth. And that's
truth.
not, and I know some people out, maybe not at the Crusade channel and our audience here at the Frontline with Joe and Joe. I'm not saying you, but some people would hear us and say, well, no, you guys are naive. No, we're not. I noticed my wife's skin color when I first saw a picture of her. Okay. It was incidental. I happened to be on a Catholic website because I wanted to meet a Catholic woman. It was incidental that my wife's skin is dark. She's a dark-skinned woman. It has nothing to do with her identity. What is her identity is the fact that she's a Roman Catholic. Can I tell you a quick story?
Sure.
You'll get a kick out of this. So my wife is in the elevator the other day. She's telling me the story because she was telling me the story mainly because to try to tell me, she said, Jojo, you do realize there are some very weird people in the world. My first response to that was, yeah, you're married to one. But after that, I said, why? What happened? She goes, I got in the elevator. And she goes, this middle-aged white woman got in the elevator, and out of nowhere, my wife said, she asked her, she says, what are you? And my wife said, excuse me? She says, yes, what color are you? And my wife said, black, right? And the woman said, well, what am I? And my wife said, white. And the woman went, no, I'm human, right? Now, wait, it always sounds a little weird. But I love my wife's response. My wife said, oh, I didn't know you were going there with the conversation. I thought you meant just like the color of my skin. She says, no, if you want my identity, I'm a Roman Catholic. And she said the woman went, oh, and rolled her eyes and got off the elevator at the next stop. But my wife's response was the correct response. She identifies as a Roman Catholic American woman. That's what my wife is.
Dude, that person is a freak.
Oh, no, it says freak. No.
What freak?
I'm human.
Good for you.
I would have been like, I don't know if you really are. But the thing is, but that's the problem is that we allow people to get away with this. We said on the show before, we're in agreement with E. Michael Jones. We cannot allow them. See, real quick, Bill Donohue breaks it down. Now, again, he's a sociologist. This is his game. This is what he's an expert in. He said, here is a sociological fact that some will find shocking. He said, white people who have white skin, never identify themselves as white persons. Their identity is based on their ethnicity, not their race. I would take it one step further. I would say as faithful Catholics, we identify first as Catholic. There are those who identify as Italian Catholic, Lithuanian Catholic, Polish Catholic, okay? But at the end of the day, they're not describing themselves as white Catholics. They're describing themselves by their ethnic group and their primary identity, which is their religion, okay? Michael Jones says that all the time. We are losing this battle against their left's attempt to divide us along the lines of race because we allow them to identify us as white guys or white women. And we are not that. And we have to stop allowing them to do that. I don't know what a white guy is because I'm not a white guy. Joe's not a white guy.
Dude, I cannot believe.
You're still on the elevator story.
I cannot believe that
my wife
someone
said,
seriously did that.
Yeah, my wife said she said it like that, so she went, no, I'm human. Like, what planet are you from?
That is just bizarre.
Right, and I told my wife, I said, you were in the elevator with this woman?
Dude, she should have been like maced.
Yeah,
you should have just been like, shh, get out of my face, crazy person. Oh my God.
Yeah, no, seriously. But that's the truth. I do want to read one more, only because this stuff is so bad that if it helps people to wake up and start challenging these race hucksters, okay? Here's another one. Now, this is a New York City psychiatrist that was invited to Yale. Now, what bothers me about this particular part of the story is that Milo Yiannopoulos or Ben Shapiro or Matt Walsh or Nick Knowles tries to go to a college, they get shouted down. You get a bunch of dweebs and little rich kids from the suburbs. They go in there, they try to shout them down. At Yale, they let Dr. Aruna Kilanani, a New York City psychiatrist, go there and tell an audience that she fantasizes about, quote, unloading a revolver. Now again, I want you to, I'm being serious now. Understand, this is not like the prior comments. Now this is an incitement to violence. And that's what we got to be careful about, okay? Now, you got to catch this. Fantasizes about, quote, unloading a revolver into the head of any white person that got in my way, burying their body, and wiping my bloody hands as I walked away relatively guiltless with a bounce in my step. Why is she giving a speech at Yale? You know, Yale gets $1 billion a year of your tax money. Why are we not demanding from our congressmen and our senators, you need to defund Yale?
Bro, I can't believe that we give a school like that so much money when their basic, like, alumni, like,
the
support,
endowments? Yeah.
It's absurd.
Right.
I mean, like
why do they get $1 billion of our tax money?
Why do they need $1 billion of our tax
Well,
money?
they'll say, oh, no, that's for research and development. Do your own research and development. Go get your own money from alumni. Don't take it from us, our money. But here's the thing. I think tax dollars should have strings attached if we're going to give them any money at all. That means Dr. Aruna Kilanani does not get invited to Yale. That you did.
Aruna Kilanani.
Right. Now, you could do some fun stuff with her name. All right.
Dude.
Kilanani, Whitey, whatever you want to do, because that's what she's saying.
My Lord.
But my point is that, and again, good people doing nothing. We allow it. We don't demand from our representatives at all that we defund higher education. Higher education needs to be defunded. They get about $100 billion a year across the board. Oh, I think Yale gets Yale, I think I'm wrong. I think they get about $500 million. Harvard gets $1 billion. University of Maine, I think, gets $2 billion. University of Washington gets $1.5 billion. These numbers are staggering, but it's our money.
That sounds like pork to me. Like that was probably put in a bill.
Right.
Like basically like they bribe somebody like, listen, you want my vote in Maine. You got to throw in.
You got to throw in the bill for the university.
That sounds like a pork line in like
absolutely. And I don't understand why we allow them to get away with it. Why we say, well, wait a minute. Do you have ideological diversity in your English department or your history department or your philosophy department? Do you? Because if you don't, we're not giving you any money. Well, we have diversity of color. No, that's not what we're talking about.
I'm human.
No, we want diversity of thought. So for every wacko leftist like Stanley
absurd.
Fish, okay, you're going to have somebody who's more conservative like a Roger Scruton, okay? So for every left-wing professor, okay, you're going to have a conservative professor, all right? And that's the way it's going to be. And there's going to be a diversity of worldview in your academic departments. And then you might get a couple bucks. I say we should defund them anyway, okay? But then you might get a couple bucks. But as long as you're in ideological lockstep with the left and you broach no dissent whatsoever, you're not getting a freaking dime. Not from Joe and Joe. Not from the good people at the Crusade Channel. I ain't paying. So that's Dr. Aruna Kilanani. She'll walk away from shooting a white person in the head with a bounce in her step. And she still has a job.
Oh, my Lord.
That's what I say. So you're at the front line with Joe and Joe. Joe Pasillo and Joe Resinello, and as always, we're in the breach. Having fun tonight, though. This afternoon, having a little bit of fun because we're not getting as angry as we usually do. There's a lot to get angry about, okay? But perhaps the Holy Spirit's working on us a little bit, getting a little bit less angry. Sometimes you just gotta laugh at these people. Maybe that's the best thing. You know what I heard somebody say? One of the best things you could do when somebody says something ridiculous, particularly in your presence, laugh your butt off. Really just, not in the Kamala Harris kind of way, all right, that kind of fake kind of way, but laugh, like when they say things that are stupid, because most of what they say is stupid, laugh.
Like I'm human.
That's all.
Oh
Just
my
laugh.
gosh, that's absurd.
I know. So we got a couple minutes before the break. Where are we headed?
We're going to Gateway Pundit. They report, this is, I think, interesting. California law basically requires nursing home staff to refer to transgender residents by their preferred pronoun. They basically said that this violates the First Amendment.
Yeah, some people still believe in the First Amendment.
Interesting, because this is California. You see, this is, again, when you read a story like this, it kind of goes back to what I'm saying. The people and even the law, they're not on board with this. And a lot of this stuff, and we've said this on other shows on the Crusade channel, Always on Air and Always Online, basically when it goes to the courts aren't perfect. We all know that. But some of this stuff is pushing the boundaries. It's just pushing the boundaries. Do we have a little bit of time that we can get into it a little bit?
Go ahead.
Basically, says, talking about the pronoun thing, it says, such a ban violates employees' rights to free speech. The court ruled, referring to residents other than by their preferred gender may be disrespectful, discourteous, and insulting. This is what the judge had to say, and it was a 3-judge panel. But it can also be a way to express an ideological disagreement with another person's expressed gender identity. The pronoun provision at issue here tests the limits of government authority to resist pure speech that, while potentially offensive or harassing to the listener, does not necessarily create a hostile environment, wrote the judge. Now, transgender activists say they're going to challenge it in court.
Well, that's
but
no
what
shock.
she's saying, it's free speech.
Right.
And it's also compelling, and this is something that I would hold fast to. You also have, in the First Amendment, freedom to religion. Now, I'm not a lawyer, but if I believe that you were created as a man or created as a woman, and I am a Catholic, why should I go against my religious affiliation? And that is a belief.
Right.
There is either a man or a woman.
Right.
That's in the Jewish people believe that. Muslim people believe that. Protestant people believe that.
Sane people believe that.
But if you, being a religious person, hold to that position, and you're going to fire me, or in the case of New York, fine me $250,000 that I didn't refer to somebody, I actually think if you took it to court, Joe, you would win.
You're going to win.
I actually do.
Let's take a break right there. You're at the front line with Joe and Joe, Joe Pasillo, Joe Resinello in the breach on the Crusade Channel, always on air and always online at crusadechannel.com. The last live radio station standing. Stick around. We got one more segment. You're going to love it. Welcome back, everyone, to the front line with Joe and Joe, Joe Pasillo and Joe Resinello in the breach on the Crusade Channel, and we are talking about preferred pronouns and the fact that a court just said in California that it is a restriction of your free speech that is unconstitutional. I like the idea that the place the judge went to, Joe, okay, is that it can be a form of political speech not to use a preferred pronoun. I thought that was an important aspect because, remember, we are fighting a culture war here, a spiritual battle when it comes to all the gender ideology. But on the political front, all right, obviously there's a battle here too. If I refuse to use your pronoun that you want me to, okay, well, that is a political expression that I am putting forth. Therefore, that expression of my political view in not using the preferred pronoun is protected under the First Amendment. That's the very thing that the First Amendment is supposed to protect. The freedom of speech part of it. Political speech. I'm not using it because I politically disagree with you. Yes, but it's how I feel. I don't care. You say things I don't like all the time on a political level. You call me a white supremacist and a racist and say you want to unload a revolver into my head. All right? You say that you're protected in being able to say that, even though you know it's an incitement to violence. All I'm doing is saying, I ain't calling you he if you're a she.
As Tom Gugliotta in the chat room
Love
said,
Tom Gugliotta.
we need Jackie Childs as the lawyer. My client's not a he or she. What are you talking about? What are you talking about? My client's not a he or she. I'll be honest with you. That's another thing that 10 years ago, you would never, you couldn't even dream that up.
The one hope
You really couldn't.
You always on the Crusade channel, always on air and always online at the Frontline with Joe and Joe. You always bring up what it was 10 years ago, 20 years ago, correctly. For the right reason. It does strike you though that they know they're in such a tenuous position, Joe Resinello. They know that everything you say is true. They've overplayed their hand. They're loser issues. They're never going to fly long term. They know that it is a hopeful thing that they're trying so hard because they know that none of it is actually going to fly. They're trying to cement it into law somehow, some way. They delude themselves into believing they'll get the court to back them up on these things. And somehow, just like abortion, it'll be with us for as long as Roe versus Wade has been with us. They really believe that. I think it's a hopeful thing that they move so quickly because it shows their fear. It shows their fear. We've talked about the long march through the institutions, Gramsci's idea of cultural hegemony over the last 100 years. They're not playing that long, slow march anymore. Now it's pedal to the metal because they know their time is short, because their boss knows his time is short. So it is hopeful to me that they try to do this and they're so desperate because they know how badly it's all going to be a disaster for them.
Well, I'll tell you, I mean, again, 10 years ago, I've been doing what I do for 23 years. I've worked on Wall Street. 10 years ago, you would never have imagined it. You never would have imagined it. My wife was telling me, she was telling me that on Credit Suisse's, they have like pictures of people, like, who do you work? You put like a picture in the directory. There's a guy that's dressed up. This is an investment bank, a global investment bank. A guy dressed up like a woman with a doll of himself next to him in the picture. Dude, millionaires work at Credit Suisse. They're an investment bank. Right. This is reputable. If
I had a company that was going public and I was going to credit, or I needed a debt instrument and I was going for my company and I was going to them and I saw that, I'd look right at the CEO's face and say, that's your judgment?
That's my point.
No,
that is my point.
That person is holding a doll of himself. He doesn't even recognize himself as a him, but he's holding a doll of himself.
That's sick.
And I'm going to entrust you with my business when you have that person in your employ?
Like 10 years ago on Wall Street. And this is not like saying like, well, we weren't, we haven't advanced. No. 10 years ago, if you did that, you were fired. It doesn't matter what you call yourself or what you identify. First of all, it's not professional. I mean, just like Joe said, if you're a serious person that wants to lay down money or you want to raise capital for a business and a guy shows up, or you look this person up in the directory, he's a guy dressed up as a woman with a doll next to him of himself dressed up as a woman. I'm sorry. I'm going to another company. And I don't think that makes me prejudiced or discriminatory. That's kind of odd. In fact, that is sick.
I want that. Listen, that person obviously has a worldview or a view of themselves that is detached from reality. And I'm going to entrust my business to a person who has no judgment whatsoever, who is not attached to reality, and I'm going to trust a company that is going to have that person. Look, you want to employ that person? That's one thing. I don't want to see anybody starve, okay? Don't put their picture on the wall. Don't put their picture on the wall. Don't brag about it. Like you're going to boast about that somehow. Your wokeness, okay? In other words, is not going to get my business. And again, competition. I don't know why people who have some big bucks aren't stepping up and creating investment banks, creating alternative. Well, some are, okay? Creating alternative media. Mike Lindell's trying to do that. Others are trying to do it. They have the money to do it. Start creating a parallel economy.
But even like people, Joe, people who make a lot of money, like I'm talking like a lot of money. Dude, you don't make a lot of money on accident.
No.
People who do, whether you like them or not, you have to have, first of all, you have to have an idea. You have to move it forward. There's a lot to making a lot of money. And because if it was easy, everyone would do it. But my point is, a serious person that makes a lot of money, that started a business, I don't know how you could take that individual seriously.
Can't.
And this is where, like I said, they're such phonies. Because that person holding a doll of himself dressed up as a woman is sick. I'm sorry. That doesn't make me insensitive. That just makes me looking at reality. That person needs help.
Right.
And first of all, that's not professional. That's not professional if you work at McDonald's. If you work in an investment bank, that's not professional. I'm just telling you right now, if I'm interviewing that person, I'm not hiring you because adults don't carry around a doll. Sorry. That doesn't make me a bigot. That doesn't make me a racist. That doesn't make me anything but an adult that's looking at reality.
My impulse is to say to them, you guys have all this money. Why are you not helping that person with some therapy or something? Anyway, I mean, it's just one of those things. And, somebody's saying in the chat room, cancel woke. Exactly right. We just have to cancel it. And the bottom line is the bottom line. We have the power to do it. You might not think so because these people are very rich and they are very powerful. There's no doubt that they have power. We could dry them up in no time. We can, as a group, I'm talking about particularly faithful Roman Catholics and all Americans of goodwill. All Americans of goodwill who agree with us on this, we could dry them up in a second. We could take their stock prices down 80% if, as a group, we started to just unsubscribe, cancel the subscription, stop buying the product, stop patronizing them, okay? And maybe sacrifice a little bit, spend a little bit more, spend it locally, smaller businesses, all right, mom and pop businesses, okay? We could dry them up in no time, and they would have to respond to us. The problem is we're not doing it in an organized way, and we're not doing it on a wide enough scale. That's really what it comes down to. We have the power to do something about this.
We got to get to this story because this is, I think, one of the most important stories we covered tonight.
Yeah.
This is about the social credit system. We're going to talk a little bit about China, but we're also talking about, because I didn't know about this. Joe picked this article out and brought it to my attention. And I think this is very important to highlight because I don't know if a lot of people know that this is going on. Just so, to give a little background, China has a social credit system. If you look it up in Wikipedia, this is what it says. It describes a social credit system imposed in communist China as following. The credit system, it's a national blacklist. This is Wikipedia. These are not my words. The program initiated regional trials in 2009 before launching a national pilot with 8 credit scoring firms in 2014. In 2018, these efforts were centralized under the People's Bank of China with participation from the 8 firms. By 2020, it was intended to standardize the assessment of citizens and businesses' economic and social reputation, i.e. a social credit system. Now, this is the part that I don't think a lot of people know about because I didn't. And I read about this and I just said, here we go again. This is in Forbes magazine. President Biden, if he has his way, he's trying to create a public credit reporting agency called the CRA to compete with the 3 major credit bureaus and maybe one day to replace them altogether. With the federal government in charge, your credit rating will have less to do with whether you pay your bills. Now, obviously, a credit rating is just that. If you're going to get a mortgage, they want to see your credit rating. If you're going to buy a car, they want to see your credit rating. It's what's it called? It doesn't matter whether you're white, black, Hispanic, Asian. It doesn't matter. It comes right down to what is your rating? Because I'm a business and I want to know if you could pay me. That's all it means. No, it doesn't matter. There's no race. It's agnostic to race. A credit rating. It's a rating on whether you could pay your bills.
It's agnostic to politics, too.
Correct. Well, Biden is trying to create this public credit reporting agency. The proposal suggests that the government-run CRA could fix a credit reporting system that frequently holds consumers back, in their view, from becoming homeowners due to problems like credit reporting errors and racial disparities. in order to eliminate, quote unquote, these disparities, white people could be docked, whereas black people could get additional points. Now, what is my issue with that? Now, I'm in business. I work in a bank. What did we just go through in 2008?
Same thing.
A financial collapse. Why? It was the second worst financial collapse next to the Great Depression. It was called the Great Recession. And it lasted for around 10 years. It wasn't just a year. What did we do in that time period? Well, it started with Clinton. He got rid of Glass-Steagall. What was that? Where banks and brokerage firms, there was a wall that that you couldn't like mix, basically like intermarry a bank and a broker dealer. He got rid of that. It began there. It went to Bush. Bush took the ball. He ran with it. He basically said, listen, I can give people, white people, black people, Asian people, women, men, doesn't matter, money that I know they can't pay back. Why? Because it's going to generate business. It's going to generate the economy. It's going to create a bubble. And guess what? It's going to benefit me as the president because the money is going to be moving. But eventually, what's going to happen? It's going to bust. Well, it might not bust during my time.
Right.
Guess what? It did bust. And what happened? The country suffered like hell. I can't tell you. I know people who lost their house. I got laid off twice during that time period. I'm telling you right now, this has nothing to do with race. They're making it about race. It's about this. If I lend you money, I want that money back. That's how a bank works. And a credit score is not only protecting the bank, it's protecting you because you have to put money down. And guess what? If you can't pay it back, I'm taking it. Okay? So what is the bottom line here? We didn't learn what we just went through. What's the old saying? Too big to fail? Well,
yeah.
Guess what? This just happened. And here we go again.
Right.
We're giving people money. It doesn't matter that they're people of color. You're basically rigging the credit score to give people money that they're not going to be able to pay back.
Right, and Clinton did it. Clinton did it originally because he made a promise that he was going to increase minority ownership of homes. Okay, that's great, but you didn't do it in a natural and organic way. You did it by doing this nonsense, this hooky-dook nonsense. In other words, like Joe said, all right, yeah, they owned the house for 3, 4, 5 years. The property value went up, okay? But then they weren't able to pay it back. They were getting these arms at 2%, okay, paying a very low rate. But then 7 years later, all of a sudden, they're
12%.
Their mortgage goes up to 12%. And they can't pay it back. What did you gain? Well, Clinton didn't care because he was out of office, okay? Bush tried, not really, tried to do something about it. Barney Frank went on the Bill O'Reilly show and said Freddie Mae and Fannie Mae are just fine. He lied, okay? And then the whole thing's collapsed. Now, Joe wanted to take that take on this story. The other take on this story is that this is a social credit score also. See, the Chinese Communist Party, to quote a great president, Ronald Reagan, okay, is the focus of evil in the modern world. You cannot be in bed with the Chinese Communist Party or want to do business with them in any way. It's not going to happen because Americans are just too interested in making money, and they're making money with China right now. They're an evil, evil regime, not the least of which reason is abortion and their policies on abortion, okay? You're talking about, all right, you're talking about a credit system that they want to impose here that mirrors China's mass surveillance system, such as Skynet. It incorporates all sorts of crazy Hollywood stuff like AI and facial recognition. But here's the bottom line. You're vocal against the government, your score goes down. You play loud music, your score goes down.
This is China.
All right. Jaywalking, your score goes down. Okay? You make a hotel reservation and you don't show up, your score goes down. What they want to do in America is you have a podcast called The Frontline with Joe and Joe. Your score is going to 0. You can't get a loan. You can't take public transportation. Okay? You can't do a lot of things. That's what these, let me not use the word, that's what these evil people in America are trying to do by emulating China's social credit system. This is just another means by which they achieve political control.
Yeah, but
you're not going to get the services that you pay taxes for, by the way. You're not going to get the services that other people get because you don't think correctly.
The thing is, because my wife and I were talking about this if you see I think this would fail though, unless they got rid of like states' rights, because what would happen is if they did do this, I'm more concerned about the credit score giving money to people that can't pay it back.
That's a legit
because
concern.
to be honest with you, that affects the economy for everybody, and we just saw that happen. But to Joe's point, and they could do that on some states, but some states wouldn't go along with it. And what would happen? They would get business from those. Like, for instance, I'll just say Arkansas doesn't go along, and California does do that, unless it was a federal law. And I don't think in a state, what would happen is banks would suck up all their business.
Right.
Like a bank in Arkansas. Say like if California did that and you lived in California, but you needed a mortgage. So guess what? You go to Arkansas to take the money out. And I think you'd see local banks organically.
Good.
No, but like unless they basically got rid of states' rights. Like and they like because in China there is no such thing.
Right.
So I don't know if that could happen. It could. Anything can happen. But to be honest with you, my concern is, again, giving money to people that can't. You're not doing anyone a favor by giving someone money. I don't care what color you are, white or black. If you can't pay it back, I'm doing you a disservice. And I'm also telling you this. This is slavery, because debt is slavery.
Oh, yeah.
I'm telling you this. That is the modern day slavery of America. It's debt. If you are debt-free, you are free. I'm going to tell you that right now.
If you have no debt, one thing I thank God for is that my wife and I have no debt. Not that we never had debt, but we have no debt to speak of, okay? And I think it's so important. When I think about it sometimes, there are people out there that are not making a lot of money, okay? But if a person even making slightly below the national average, I think the national average is about $55,000. Okay, a year. So let's say a person makes $40,000 a year. Let's take a single person, okay, makes $40,000 a year. That's roughly $3,500 per month, okay? Not paying much in taxes because they're at the low end of the range. So let's say, for argument's sake, they pay about $600 a month in taxes. They have $2,900. Do you understand that you actually could live on that? You could have an apartment, a roof over your head, internet access, cable TV, a phone, food, okay, a car. Okay, you could live. You're not super duper wealthy, but you could live. You throw credit card debt into that mix,
oh, you're done.
And you're suffering. You're suffering. It's one of the biggest lessons we as Catholics could tell other people. You must get out of debt. And if you have any debt, pay it off quick, like a home. Sacrifice other things to pay off the home, not in 30 years, but in 6 or 7. Calculate how much it would take to pay off the home in the shortest period of time and do it. Save yourself all that interest. But aside from that, okay, credit card debt, other forms of debt that you could have, don't do it. It is, like Joe said, so liberating. And I've had debt most of my life because I was a jerk most of my life, okay? It is not. When you have a paycheck where you're not making a lot of money and a good chunk of that check is going for credit card debt, man, you're treading water, brother. You're treading water, and it's very difficult to get yourself out of it.
Well, let's look at reasons why people do that, because they don't know. We've talked about this. They don't know who they are. Why people? You see, years ago, in my parents' day, you couldn't do that because they didn't allow it. Now they do. Like, you bought things on layaway.
Layaway. I was just thinking that.
like my parents, I'm 51 years old. My parents never bought a new car, ever. No, I'm sorry. They bought one new car. A Toyota Corolla, for $14,000 about 10 years ago. The only new car.
Right.
$14K. And they paid cash for it, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
So, my point is, this is all new. But people do that because, to be honest with you, this is Americanism. Everything's a show. It's a bubble. You know, a lot of times you see people, they look rich. They're not rich. They don't own that house. They don't own that car. They don't own just about anything they have.
Right.
To be completely honest with you. It's all a bubble. It's a facade.
Right.
To be truthful with you, I'll tell you, as they say in New Jersey, money talks and BS walks. It's cash in hand and cash is king. I'll be truthful with you. A lot of it is all a bubble.
Before the credit card, the advent of credit cards in the 1970s, people paid cash. And if you didn't have the cash, you didn't buy it. It was that simple. It was that simple. You didn't charge a dinner. There's no Visa card. How much did dinner cost? $50. Well, okay, here's the cash. Those people use cash. You had to pay for it. If you didn't have the money, you didn't buy it. It was that simple.
Well, that was
we
that
live in a time
generation.
where this is where I blast Republicans. After 9/11, George Bush gets up there and he turns around and says, take your family on that vacation. Go to Disney World and this and that. Why? Money. We just went through a national disaster. And you're worried about the economy? You're worried about people going on vacation? What, getting on a plane when they just flew two of them into the World Trade Center? In other words, because it's all about money. In other words, and if you don't have something, you're a loser. Well, but I got to go into debt to buy it. Yeah, but if you don't, you're a loser.
And that's exactly what it is. And to be honest with you, the losers of that are the people that buy into that.
That's right.
Because I'll tell you what, debt is slavery, my friend. When you work to pay off interest, 29% interest,
You're a slave.
You're a slave. I don't care whether you're white or black.
Doesn't matter.
You're a slave. And to be truthful with you, people have to change that mentality. They don't understand how money works. My example, this is what I tell people all the time, and I work in banking. When you do your taxes and you calculate all the interest that you paid in a calendar year, put that number on your refrigerator and circle it in a red Sharpie. And every time you open your refrigerator, look at what you basically have to pay for the luxury of owning the crap that you are gathering in your house. Maybe that'll change your tune.
We got to leave it there. Thanks for joining us at the Frontline with Joe and Joe. Joe Pasillo and Joe Resinello on the Crusade Channel. Always on air and always online at crusadechannel.com. The last live radio station standing. Go to the site. Go on crusadechannel.com. Hit listen free. Listen, kick the tires, look under the hood. We know you're going to love it and want to be a subscriber. Also, follow Joe and I across social media. Just look for us. You'll find us. We're out there. Help us. Like, subscribe, share. Get the word out. If you like what we're doing, then share it with your friends and family. And patreon.com is where you can throw in a couple bucks to support us financially. Patreon.com/The Frontline with Joe and Joe. And remember, until the next time, that our conversation is your conversation. And that conversation is going on everywhere. We'll talk to you soon.
Thanks for listening.